Throw the slack, you fucking moron!
Force will be with you, always.
Whoa, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Screen Share, a movie podcast about locking S-foils in attack position. My name's Adam Cook.
Calder.
This is this is continuing our series of doing the Fast and Furious and Star Wars movies. This is our first Star Wars movie we're doing. Yes, we're starting with the original trilogy.
Wait, no. I was booing the people who wouldn't do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not you.
I mean, I do have. Hopefully, it's out by the time this episode's out. But I do have a
We'll see.
We'll see. I do have a ranking and review video where I compare Star Wars and Harry Potter on my YouTube channel, and I did do that chronologically.
Yeah. Oh, timeline chronologically.
Yeah. But that made sense there. I feel like approaching this from the context of as they're coming out is kind of interesting. So,
and also, that would be fucked up if we were doing that with Fast and Furious.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, sure. So anyway, this episode is on Star Wars, also known as, or now commonly known as Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. I'm going to give a brief synopsis here. The galaxy is under already fucked it up.
You just reading the scroll, or what's going on?
No, I wrote my own synopsis, actually. The galaxy is under rule by the supremely corrupt galactic empire who have finished the construction of a planet. Fucking hell. I'm starting over.
He can't read, guys. He's just kind of pretending.
Honestly, it's because one of my eyes, this mic is blocking the script, and one of them it's not, so I'm going to move it down here. There we go. The galaxy is under rule by the supremely corrupt galactic empire who have finished construction on a planet-killing superweapon. Ooh. Led by the evil Sith Lord Darth Vader, the Empire has captured Princess Leia of the Rebel Alliance in hopes that she will reveal the location of the hidden Rebel base. Meanwhile, young farm boy Luke Skywalker yearns for adventure. Sooner than he expects, Luke finds himself thrown into a quest to save the galaxy alongside Jedi Master Ben Kenobi, smuggling duo Han Solo and Chewbacca, and lovable droid companions R2-D2 and C-3PO. Together with the help of Princess Leia, they hope to end the tyranny of the Galactic Empire. What do you think of the movie?
It sounded a lot like what you were just talking about, but I wasn't paying attention. Cool. I think it's pretty good. Yeah.
So actually, let me give some context for the film.
Okay.
Before we jump into that. So this movie was released in 1977. George Lucas wrote and directed it. Before this, he was most known for his films THX 1138. Which he released in 71, and then also American Graffiti, which he released in 73.
American Graffiti is pretty good.
Yeah, both of those movies received pretty well. THX 1138 is
I haven't seen that one. So.
I haven't seen it either, but it's very much a
dark sci-fi.
Yeah, it's very much a high concept kind of movie. It's not really like a it's not as this is gonna sound weird. It's not as watchable as a Star Wars.
It's more like Blade Runner than it is Star Wars. It's more like dystopian.
Yeah. But those films kind of set him up for this.
And Harrison Ford's in American Graffiti.
He is. And they were kind of friends / work collaborators. Harrison Ford not even really supposed to be cast. In fact, George Lucas did not want to cast him in the movie. And he just asked him to do a favor for him and read opposite of other characters or other people auditioning for characters. And he was just so good during the auditioning process that he was like, fucking fine, you can be on Solo.
Well, because I looked up who the Han alternates were.
There were a lot.
And it was it's a shocking list.
Kurt Russell. Or no, sorry.
Yeah, Kurt Russell's in there.
Well, yeah, Kurt Russell, but Kurt Russell was also up for Luke. Yeah. But it's funny that George Lucas was I don't really want anyone well-known. He wanted to go for mostly unknowns. And then the people who would have gotten it if it wasn't Harrison Ford: Kurt Russell, Nick Nolte, Sylvester Stallone, Bill Murray, Christopher Walken, Burt Reynolds, Jack Nicholson, James Caan, Robert De Niro, Kelsey Grammer, Al Pacino, Steve Martin, Chevy Chase. Like, those are all knowns.
Yeah.
I guess at the time, not all of them were like really well known.
Well, yeah, like some of them are young, just starting. Like Stallone, I think was pretty young at this point.
Yeah.
Like I don't think Rocky had come out when this came out, so he was really like nobody. But
yeah, but the truth is, I look at that list like I'm not sure I've seen a more perfect casting in nearly any movie than Harrison Ford as Han Solo. Like the ability to be like
Rocky had come out
oh,
the year before.
oh yeah, but like the ability to be like a bad guy and be like kind of unlikable, but also be like so charming that you kind of have to like him, and like be a brooding kind of dangerous character, but also there's like a level of like charm and like genuine like lovability to him. It's like I truly don't think that anybody could have played Han Solo as well as Harrison Ford did. Obviously, when you're talking about roles in the past and being like, they're the perfect casting for this, it's like,
Obviously, yeah.
maybe if we saw someone else, we would have been like, whatever.
Yeah.
Because it would have been a different character. But like, man, Han Solo is just so good. Anyway, so the production of this movie, originally George Lucas wanted to get the rights to Flash Gordon and like make a Flash Gordon movie, but he couldn't get the rights. So instead he was just like, okay, why don't I just make something like that? So he kind of looked at what inspired Flash Gordon and kind of used that.
But the Flash Gordon movie's dog shit.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah. I've never seen it.
Well, maybe I don't know. I think it's one of those movies that people are like, it's so campy and so funny. But it's just like them being like, it's a bad movie, but I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, so he took inspiration from what inspired Flash Gordon and then also added new inspirations. Like he's very much inspired by Kurosawa films. He even almost cast actor Toshiro Mifune, who's like been in multiple Kurosawa films. He almost cast him as Ben Kenobi. And
he's also like, he's like the iconic samurai in film history as well. Like in Seven Samurai and in Yojimbo, he's like the guy.
Yeah.
And it would have been an interesting thing.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's like...
I feel like then it wouldn't be like taking inspiration. It would be basically... it would be basically copying in a way then. Yeah.
And it's also... I think it's just a little weird because of how like iconic he is as a samurai to is that a scratch? What the hell is that? That's not nice.
It's just like it's just a line. It's a line, yeah, here.
That sucks. I think it's just like kind of too much of a reference, you know, where I feel like casting shouldn't be referential to what they're doing generally.
Yeah.
It should be like trying to show us something interesting. And not that Alec Guinness is like a far away like person to cast as Obi-Wan, but I don't know, it'd just be a little weird to be like,
because then it's like too close to samurai.
Yeah,
because like I feel like one of the things that makes Star Wars so strong is that it is so confident in everything that it is and everything it's putting forward that like is Star Wars. Like it's not like so many of these concepts are just like so out of left field wacky, but the movies are just like, yeah, that's actually the way that it is. Mm-hmm. And because it's so confident in doing that, like Mark Hamill, when he was auditioning for like Luke, he kind of was like, oh, the dialogue's like really weird.
Yeah.
And it is weird. Mm-hmm. And like some would even say some of the dialogue is like I mean, all the actors criticize the dialogue. Like Harrison Ford is like famous for saying that like to George Lucas, you can write this shit, but you can't read it. But like Mark Hamill like has said that when he was reading it, he was kind of thrown off by how like universe embedded the script is. Like whenever they talk about something and like reference something that is in universe, they talk about it so nonchalantly and like casually because the characters in the movie just like understand that to be true. And then because they do that, even though we don't necessarily know what they're talking about, like we immediately just believe and kind of understand what they mean.
Yeah.
Which I think is like a big strength of it. It's kind of like George Lucas was perfect to write and direct the first one, and then it's kind of good that he
didn't do the next two.
Didn't direct the next two and got help writing. I'm pretty sure he got help writing the next two.
Yeah.
And like took a back seat when it came to directing because like he is such a great ideas guy, but like as we'll get into when we talk about like special edition changes,
And
he's not
prequels as
great
well.
when he gets full creative control. But like, man, like he is like, it's hard to talk about George Lucas because there's so much to be said about like him kind of like messing with Star Wars and kind of like ruining aspects of it and all of this. But like at the end of the day, like he really is Star Wars. Like all of the concepts, all the ideas, the characters, the like relationships, all of this is like all from him.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's hard to be like, yeah, he kind of ruined it when it's like, well, he also made it. So,
yeah. And I think like, I guess just looking at Just a New Hope, I'm glad that it was all him.
Yeah.
But it is really disappointing. Like, because I watched the 2013 Blu-rays, which I think the change, like they were released in 2011 or something.
Yeah.
I did a little research because I know that there's shit that's not supposed to be in there technically in there. And just like clearly seeing, like for the most part, clearly seeing what's been added is so bad.
It's so jarring.
And
I will say
disappointing.
it is the worst in A New Hope. Like there's also
Yeah.
changes and additions and stuff in Empire and Jedi, but like in A New
It's
Hope,
like-
it's like really noticeable.
Yeah.
Because like it's especially noticeable when Luke and Ben and the droids like first go to Mos Eisley.
Yeah.
Because originally they take the land speeder and they go into Mos Eisley, and then they talk to the stormtroopers. They go into the cantina. Like that's what it is. But in like these special edition changes and in like all these different like additions, he added like prequel quality CGI,
Which is bad.
But like at least in the prequels, it's like what it is.
Yeah, it fits.
Yeah. Whereas like when you're watching a film from 1977 and then you see a CGI creature from 2000, from like 1999 or 2000 walk across the screen, you're like, that's not supposed to be there.
But then now in full 4K quality.
Yeah.
You see it and it's even worse.
Yeah.
Because like a DVD is like what, maximum 720p,
Think
right? So like that little bit of blur doesn't make it much better.
Yeah.
But it hides it a little. Now you can see all the like horrible edges and bad textures and all of that.
Yeah. Because the CG looks too smooth.
Yeah.
And like, because the thing is, these movies ignore all of the like CGI additions and like special edition stuff. These movies like look really good. Like they look insanely good, especially Empire and like Jedi.
Yeah.
They look amazing. But like even this movie like looks so good. So then when you like put a giant shit stain on screen, because it's not even like they added like a little creature here and a little creature there, especially the like Mos Eisley introduction
it's really
scene.
mostly just Mos Eisley.
Yeah, there's like little things throughout aside
it's
from
like-
that, but especially Mos Eisley, it's like every single shot has like 5 new CGI random shit going on in the background and the foreground. In like the original cut, when the stormtroopers approach them and they're like, "Where'd you get these droids?" or whatever, like it's just a shot of the land speeder, the stormtroopers going up to them and them talking to them. In the special edition, they literally have like a creature. I forget the name of it, which is kind of bumming me out.
I think that's okay. I think you're allowed to forget one of the names.
Thanks. But like they use this creature. It's one of the big long neck huge things.
Looks like
they
a
use it in like
brontosaurus.
12 different shots. But like this one specifically, instead of just showing the land speeder and what's happening, they have one cross, not even in the foreground. It's like right in front of your eyes. It crosses the screen and blocks the whole screen for like 12 frames.
Yeah.
What is that adding? It's not adding anything.
Yeah.
What
The
it's really doing is
disappointing
distracting.
thing is it doesn't add anything.
Yeah. Because George Lucas's reasoning for these things is he's like, well, all of the changes that I make, I'm making it my original vision. Like what I couldn't do in the 70s, I'm able to do now with the help of special effects. And it's like, okay, with some of those things I understand. Like, we'll get into it, but like in Empire on Cloud City, there's shots where like in the original it was just all interior white walls, but then in the special edition they like used effects to get rid of the walls so that you could see like the sky and the buildings of Cloud City. It's like that's a good addition because it's like expanding the world and it makes more sense. But then there's changes where like in Return of the Jedi, there's this beautiful landscape shot of Jabba's palace. But then for some reason they added a little CGI frog in the bottom
That like
corner.
licks something.
Yeah, like eats a little bug and burps.
Yeah.
And it's like,
That's your original
thank goodness the original vision has finally been realized. It's like, it's so much added shit that is just so horrible. And like, it just, it doesn't like, it's not even that it doesn't add anything. It's that it is distracting from like the master. It's like, George, why would you add these things? They are taking away from like the masterpiece you created.
Yeah.
Like you are actively diluting like your like magnum opus.
Yeah,
Because-
I completely agree with you.
And it sucks because it's hard to like detach from that because it's so it's such an
so
eyesore.
obvious.
And like I said, it gets better or it doesn't get better. It gets not as bad in the other ones, those editions. I have like there's a bunch of people online who have like gotten a bunch of different versions. Like they got like the Betamax and like the like
I think Hillary said she has the VHS version.
yeah, there's VHS versions. I have VHS versions, but there's still the special editions. Like there is no access to the original theatrical release version.
It's kind of fucked up.
The only versions I think are in like I forget what it is, but like some library.
Like the Library of Congress or whatever.
Yeah. And it's like those versions exist, but like no one's ever getting to those.
Yeah.
But like George Lucas has made sure that like those
These are
versions
the
do not
versions.
exist because they're not his original vision. But it's like those are the versions people want.
Yeah.
So a bunch of fans have gotten together. There's multiple versions of this, but like I'll just talk about the ones I've watched. And they made something they call the despecialized editions, where it's like full like Blu-ray quality like footage that they like took some from the Blu-rays, some from like the streaming version, some from like the 4K, some from the Betamax, some from VHSs, and they like pieced it all together so that it is like an HD viewing of as close to the original release as you can. And those are usually the versions I watch because I have those downloaded.
Oh, okay.
But for this, I assumed you would be watching the Disney Plus version for some reason, so I watched that version.
I think that's a fair assumption. I forget that I have the
Blu-rays.
I have the prequels and the original trilogy on Blu-ray.
Yeah,
Which I don't know why. I bought them when I was like 13.
sure. I don't own all of the Star Wars movies, which is kind of baffling.
Is it the sequels?
What?
that you don't have?
Actually, the sequels are the ones I have. I have Force Awakens, Last Jedi,
You don't have Rise.
Solo. I don't have Rise.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have all of them on Blu-ray. Eventually, I will buy like a box set of like 4K, whatever. But like, I don't know. I mean, the original trilogy. I watched the despecialized editions, which are on a fucking flash drive somewhere. Like, I just go wherever.
Yeah, I bought them. There's one summer where like I worked at a golf course, the whole thing, and I spent like $1,000 on Blu-rays.
Nice.
So that's most of my Blu-ray collection.
Yeah.
So,
but like that's the thing. Like I'm looking at the different versions released. Like there's literally like maybe 20 dates here where things change.
Page.
Yeah. Like they changed it when like they released them on DVD. They changed them when they released them on Blu-ray. They changed them when they released them on VHS. They changed them when they put them to streaming. They changed some of them when they planned to release them in 3D. Like, oh yeah, did you watch you watched the 2013 Blu-rays.
Yeah.
So you didn't watch the McClunky cut.
What's the McClunky cut?
So one of the
can I pull up? Is there a name for McClunky other than just
no?
McClunky?
There's nothing. There's nothing you will find that is worth even. I can just act it out for you, and it'll be just as good as.
Okay.
So, the most notorious change out of any of the original trilogy changes is making Greedo shoot first instead of Han.
Yeah.
Because in the original release, when Greedo approaches Han and is like threatening him, basically saying like, "I've been tasked with like killing you and bringing you in." Han shoots him. And then in the special editions, they changed it so that Greedo shoots.
But Han's head moves one frame.
Yeah. Greedo shoots first by like 2 frames, and then Han's head is digitally moved to the side. It looks so unnatural. And George Lucas's reasoning was that he didn't want the first introduction of Han Solo to be as a cold-blooded killer. And it's like, but that's kind of what he is.
Yeah, he's supposed to be like a bad guy smuggler, like
that's kind of the
this
point.
Life. Yeah.
So that change was made, and then it's like, okay, whatever, sure. He moves his head in an unnatural way. Then they changed it again, or they didn't. They kind of like left it because it was like a notorious thing, whatever. But then it wasn't until the movies were put on Disney Plus that people realized that there was yet another change, because The Phantom Menace was released to theaters again in 3D, but then it didn't do as well as they had hoped, so they didn't re-release all the other ones to 3D. But they had planned to release them all in 3D, including with some changes. Another change that was made to A New Hope was another change to the Han Greedo scene, where originally the kind of flow of the scene is like Greedo's like, he says like, I'm just going to do Greedo voice, but like he says like, Oska do iska do klinko katoska, and then Han goes, yeah, I bet you have, because he's like saying, I've been waiting to kill you for a long time. He says, yeah, I bet you have. Then the shots happen, which kind of is like, it feels like a natural build and then climax, whatever. Now the Disney Plus version is, he says the like, oh, kadaduska, da klinko, kaduska. And then he goes, yeah, I bet you have. And then Greedo goes, McClunky. And then they shoot. So apparently, and it's so out of place. It doesn't sound the same at all. It's very clearly like shoved in there. The reason they did that the reason George did that apparently is because McClunky is supposed to, in the Rhodian language, mean you're dead, or like I'm gonna kill you now, basically. So that it was like, no, but it was like a last resort. Like Han knew he was gonna get shot, so he had to shoot. And it's just like, we know he had to shoot. That's why he shot, guys. Yeah. And it's just like, these changes just like really take away from what is otherwise like one of the most legendary films of all time.
Yeah. I think the other, and then we should move off this because I feel like we're crapping on it.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I think we both like the movie.
Yes.
I think the other bad change is just the Jabba stuff.
Oh, fucking
where
hell.
he steps on his tail and he does a little whimper.
Well, not even steps on his tail, just that scene exists.
Yeah. Well, that scene existed, though. It was just a dude before, wasn't it?
Well, it was a deleted scene. So the scene existed before, but it was just a human being. Well, the scene ends even with the CGI Jabba, with Han saying, "Jabba, you're a wonderful human being." And it's like, what? So originally it was just a man like wearing like a weird costume.
Like a furry vest.
Yeah. And Jabba was just going to be a guy, but then it was kind of cut for time and didn't really add anything, so they took it out.
And it still doesn't really add much.
And it still doesn't add much. If anything, I think it takes away something because it like takes away the like reveal in Return of the Jedi when it's like, whoa, Jabba's like this big fat fucking slug.
Yeah, it's better if he's like talked about but not seen.
Yeah. But instead we see this like, now the scene's been re-added, but like it's CGI Jabba. But he looks worse than CGI Jabba looked in Phantom Menace, which confuses me. Anyway.
I couldn't tell you, man.
Well, I guess it's probably because it was a rush job, like random addition, right? Like they were like, oh,
I'd
also do
imagine.
this thing.
I just like, I don't know how the CGI is still so bad also.
Yeah. Well, that's... I don't want to talk about like the special edition changes too much in the other episodes, so that's why I'm
Yeah,
touching on the other
okay.
movies a little bit. But it's
Well, the
like,
other ones don't have that much. It's just like
Yeah.
an establishing shot where you're like, why the fuck does it look like that? Like,
Yeah.
why does Cloud City look like that?
Yeah.
You know?
But it's like in Return of the Jedi when they are saving Han from the carbonite.
Yeah.
It like just still does like a basic glow red like MS Paint brush over like 50% opacity, but then like there's other things that they update and change. There's other things they like work on to make look better, but they also like leave some of the stuff that looks
Yeah.
bad. So it's just like it's clear that there's not really a guided vision for what's being changed. It's kind of just like, we should fucking add this. Like, it's just kind of misguided. And what a lot of people say is that like George Lucas doesn't really realize what makes what he made so good. Like he kind of
that's
like
fair.
misunderstands why Star Wars is so good and why Star Wars is so loved. And like he doesn't understand why people would be upset that he would go back and change like something that they loved. It's kind of a tangent, but like with Overwatch, we've played Overwatch a lot. Like
Yeah.
we bought Overwatch, we played Overwatch, we loved Overwatch, and then the developers take away Overwatch
And give us new dog shit.
and replace it with Overwatch 2.
Maybe it's not dog shit, but
But like it's a thing of like, no, but like that's the thing we had and the thing we like, and it's not that you gave us another option. It's that you gave us this
away the
option and
old
took
option.
away the old option. And it's like it's just a complete misunderstanding of like what people and like connect with
yeah,
of your art.
I agree.
But yeah, anyway, so the Jabba thing is just ridiculous. Like we said, it doesn't add anything. Like they had to like digitally make Harrison Ford like janky, like move up the frame so that he could step on Jabba's tail, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is just like, I don't know. And it's also just an excuse to throw Boba Fett in there so that there's more context for when he shows up later. And it's like,
But
who
also that's
cares?
another thing where it's like, it's kind of better if he's mysterious.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like why? It's just so that it can be like, well, how are they going to know who he is when he shows up in Empire? We don't.
Yeah, we
and
don't
then
even
we
know-
learn who he is in Empire.
Yeah.
Like it's not like they added a random scene where Lando is in A New Hope because that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's just silly additions. Anyway, we'll move off of this.
I think it's just like the thing with Star Wars that I don't like is just like the need to explain everything.
Yeah. And
Whereas,
to
like,
connect everything.
I think the biggest strength that this movie has is that you're just dropped into it and you don't need everything explained.
Exactly.
And it still makes sense. And like the world is cool and the people are cool and the planets are cool.
Yeah.
And it's just like new and exciting and just something you've never seen before.
Yeah.
But then as time's gone on, it's been like, so this is exactly how this happened in this movie, and this is exactly what this person was doing before this movie.
Yeah.
And these people have actually seen each other 6 times before, and you know all of their meetings.
But
and
then,
it's like,
but then it kind of like alters then what the dialogue is.
Yeah.
Like there in the original trilogy, watching it, like there's like obviously I'm trying to disconnect from other stuff and just watch it as the movie is,
which we're gonna do in a bit.
Yes.
But it's so hard to disconnect Star Wars from the other
From
Star
Star
Wars
Wars,
in a
yeah.
unique way compared to Fast and Furious, where like the canon of Fast and Furious doesn't really fucking matter at all.
Yeah. Whereas like the canon of Star Wars really matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where like, yeah. So like, there's like multiple times in the original trilogy, in this movie specifically, where like a character will say a line. It's a lot of lines from Obi-Wan, to be honest, where like a character will say a line and it's like, technically that's like true, but like with context that we know from like what we've learned of his past, like that's not really true.
There was one where I was like, it was about Anakin or something. And I was like, how is that true? And then I looked it up and it's like, yeah, well, they made the prequels after, so it kind of fucks up this one line here. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, there's like a lot of lines, which it can all be explained away by in Return of the Jedi, Obi-Wan showing up and being like, technically it was true from a certain point of view. And it's like,
yeah,
okay. But I don't know. So it's kind of tough because like you said, Star Wars, like what is canon matters a lot because it's so connected, but because they're kind of working off of something that is just in the middle of a story, which is kind of part of the strength of it. Mm-hmm. It's like, because they're working on something that's the middle of the story, then like they kind of have to work off of that. Like everything that's made in Star Wars is like working off of the original trilogy in some way.
Yeah.
Which like I think they're hopefully kind of moving in a direction where they're just kind of doing like whatever. But we'll see.
Yeah, there's some good ideas floating around there. I don't think a Mandalorian movie is a good idea.
We'll see.
But we'll see.
Anyway, let's move away from the special edition stuff and just I mean if negative things come up, but like general negative stuff.
I think we're okay from now on.
Yeah.
The opening of this movie is gorgeous. And exciting. And
well, first of all, to start with the very beginning, like long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah.
Just kind of a good setup. But like the idea of like the opening crawl, like I've kind of become desensitized to it because I've seen it in so many Star Wars movies and I've seen the Star Wars movies so many times. But like I was really thinking about it and like the idea of like putting a ton of text at the beginning of the movie to be like, all right, this is what we're dealing with. And then just kind of put you immediately into, and we're in danger. Danger's happening. Like, it's just, it throws you immediately in. Like, you would think that they'd start with, like, the calm, like, Luke stuff to start. But, like, there's something about just immediately being thrown in that you're like, oh, these are the stakes.
which really, like, makes it feel modern.
Yeah.
Because that is, like, a modern thing. They do that in almost every Marvel movie now. Not the crawl, but, like, the immediate you're into the action.
Yeah.
And then we go and meet the hero kind of thing. I saw a horrible opening crawl in a movie called In the Name of the King. I'm working on this video. Part of the video is about early 2000s video game adaptations by Uwe Boll. Have you heard of this guy?
No.
He's like one of the worst directors of all time.
Nice. Good for him.
In this movie, there's a poorly voiceover, like read scroll to try and explain the deep lore of this video game. And it's just horrible and one of the worst openings. But then with this, it's like the thing I told you where I was like, if the credits are good, movie's probably going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
The credits in this movie are fantastic.
Yeah.
And the music when the Star Wars pops up, I don't know how that is perfect.
Yeah.
But it just is.
Because it's not like jolting where you're like, Star Wars. It's like, it feels like you're like,
it's like you woke
whoa.
up.
Yeah. It's like all of a sudden you're in it.
Yeah.
Like it really just like grabs you. And like it feels so like watching. That's why I was so excited about seeing like new Star Wars movies in theaters, because like the only one that I could have really watched in theaters was Revenge of the Sith, because it came out in 2005, but I was like 6 years old.
That doesn't really mean anything to you.
Exactly. So like I was so excited to watch Star Wars movies in theaters, and like obviously we'll get into my opinions on them later, but like it was like truly so exciting to be sitting in a like packed theater, and it's dark, and like the screen like shows a little blue text and it goes black, and then all of a sudden I'm just like tossed into it.
Yeah.
Like I'm so glad that I was able to live that feeling. And specifically with the original trilogy, the crawls are just like written so well.
Yeah.
It gives you everything that you need to know
Simply.
Very
It's
simply.
simple.
Yeah.
The prequels are not simple.
The prequels are less simple.
Yeah.
I still think the prequel crawls tend to be better than the sequel
The
crawls.
sequel crawls are just there because they were there in the earlier ones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, how do we write a crawl?
Yeah.
Rather than like, okay. Like, because George Lucas, I'm like 99% sure, just wrote all the crawls for the original trilogy
hope.
and the prequel trilogy.
Yeah.
So like, it's so weird that he's like kind of a bad writer and a bad director, but like he is the perfect person to do so many of these writing and directing things.
Yeah.
Mostly writing.
It's such like a weird thing how important he is.
Yes.
Because when you look at his filmography, it's THX, it's American Graffiti, it's A New Hope, like director.
Yeah.
It's A New Hope, and then the prequels, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like
He did like a film called like Red Tails, which was
did
just
he direct that though?
I think he did. Let me
I don't
check.
think he directed that.
Maybe he didn't. Maybe he just produced it.
War Action. No,
No, he didn't.
it was co-directed by him.
Oh, okay.
But like, I don't know. I don't really count that as much.
No.
If I'm being honest.
Well, I remember seeing an interview when that was coming out, and he was literally like, "Yeah, I just make movies for fun now. I like to make movies." Like,
and then he doesn't. But like, he's still making movies. He's just
Yeah.
not releasing them.
yeah,
Which is just insane.
yeah, he like literally is like, "I make movies for me now because when I made movies for other people, they didn't like them and they don't like me." And it's like that. It makes me feel bad because like
Yeah.
he is literally a genius.
Yeah.
But like also, like. To be like, people don't like my movies, fuck them.
Well, it's like,
all right.
Well,
I
you're
get
fucking
it.
with the thing they love.
Yeah.
If you just made THX2, I think you'd be fine.
Yeah, sure.
You know? But it's
Everyone's
just,
grasping for THX too.
it's just so incredible how, unlike some of the other directors of his time, like Scorsese or Spielberg, or like even Brian De Palma, he doesn't have a huge body of work.
Yeah.
He just like literally struck gold with this one thing.
Yeah.
And then that made him
And it's
probably the most important one of the most important people in Hollywood history.
Yeah. Well, I'm guessing that like after he made Star Wars, like every studio was knocking at his door being like, please make movies for us. Please make movies for us. But like he was like notorious for being like, I don't trust studios.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want like any studio involvement. And like
He
with
did the prequels like independently.
Yeah. He like independently funded them.
Yeah.
Which shows how insanely successful the original trilogy
And
was.
he like sold the toy rights to fund the movie.
Well, yeah, so actually I was just going to get into that. So he took like a pretty low like
Fee on this
fee.
movie, right?
Yeah, I think he got like $150,000 to direct
Which
it
is
or
a
something.
nice chunk of change.
It's not
but-
bad, but like he also then got, I forget exactly how much it was. He wanted full merchandising rights.
Yeah.
In exchange for like a lower pay, and the studio was like, of course.
Yeah.
Because like at that time, like merchandising movies wasn't really a big thing. I mean, there's a great documentary series on Netflix, I believe, where it's like the toys that made us. Mm-hmm. And like one of the main episodes in that is about Star Wars and how like Star Wars toys like kind of made what toys are now. Mm-hmm. Like they were just insanely successful. And like that kind of explains a lot of why George Lucas made so much money.
And then for
like,
some reason, people kept getting away with doing that basically until the 89 Batman.
Yeah.
And then they kind of were like, okay, we're not going to let them do that anymore.
Yeah.
But it's insane that that was just like a thing where people were like, yeah, fuck it, I don't care.
Yeah. Well, because like they're looking at this weird like space opera movie where they're like, we're kind of like taking a flyer on this one. Like, we'll see how it does. Like, we're giving them basically no money to make this.
Yeah.
The budget of this movie was $11 million, which was pretty low for the time even. Mm-hmm. And like, they're just like, whatever. Yeah, sure, you can have the toys. Turns out it's the most successful movie of all time. Everyone is buying the toys because like kids love it, teens love it, adults love it. Everyone's buying this shit. Like he didn't even strike gold. He like struck like diamond.
With inflation, it's only $50 million today.
Yeah, which is
for
this kind of movie is like quite.
It's
low.
the cost of like John Wick 2.
Yeah,
I think, which is insane because that movie looks good,
but it
doesn't have the world building that this movie does.
No. And like, so the movie made $775.8 million. How much is that for inflation?
Give me a second.
Yep, no problem. So like, it was genuinely like and kind of still is like one of, if not the most successful movie of all time, especially since it was so unexpected.
778.
775.8.
I'm just gonna do 775.
Sure.
I think that's right. I heard this story, 3.5 billion, and it's the
$3.5 billion.
Yeah, and it's the second highest grossing movie in North America of all time. I think behind Gone with the Wind.
Yeah,
and has like the second most like ticket purchases. Gone with the Wind has like 200 million,
which
but I think that ran in
but
theaters for like years.
Yeah,
and Star Wars was in theaters for a lot longer than most like theatrical releases now.
Well, and I think they've done like a couple re-releases.
Yeah, but it's the second highest grossing movie in North America of all time.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah.
But there was this like story I heard because at this time, like Spielberg had like, I think Jaws became the most highest grossing movie of all time, and then he saw a cut of Star Wars and he was like, I think you might beat me here, George.
And George was like, no way.
Yeah. And then Brian De Palma was like, what the fuck is this? And he did like Scarface, and a bunch of other movies, Carrie.
Yeah.
And he was like, what the fuck is this? This is bad, George. Like, you're going to lose all this money. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And then Spielberg's like, I think he's got something here. And then he blows it out of the water. But then E.T., I think, also then beats the record or something for like opening weekend or something like that.
There's a bunch of like, because they would like buy it because everyone was like friends. They'd all like buy out newspaper ads of like their characters congratulating the characters from the new movie that got #1, which they still kind of did with like Jurassic World and like Force Awakens and stuff. They kind of brought that back. But like, so kind of on that note, George Lucas had no faith that this was going to do well. So like he didn't even attend the premiere. He went on vacation with Spielberg like when the movie was premiering because he was like, it's not going to work. I'm going to go on vacation. And like on that vacation, they came up with the idea for Indiana Jones, which is pretty cool.
That's pretty fun.
But like,
which is insane also though.
Yeah, man.
Hillary and I were talking and we are like, oh, right. The guy who's playing Han Solo is also Indiana Jones. That's fucking psychotic.
Yeah.
Another actor will never have two iconic roles like that.
Like, truly two of the most iconic
no one else can
action
play them.
Adventure characters of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And both of them so good. And both of them different, too. Like, obviously, they've got similarities, but, like, both of them very different characters. So Spielberg had so much faith in the movie that I forget exactly what movie of Spielberg's was coming out at the same time.
Was it E.T.?
No, it was one of his lesser successful.
Oh, it was 1943, which is like a musical comedy that's kind of dog.
Okay, it might have been that one.
Yeah.
But like whatever film was coming out at the time, basically George Lucas and Spielberg made a deal where they would each have like a percentage of the like lifetime earnings of each other's movie, and George Lucas was like, all right, my friend is Steven Spielberg, like he's gonna make money on this. But Steven Spielberg like clearly saw something in Star Wars, because how much money has he made?
He's probably made like hundreds of millions of dollars.
Has Spielberg.
And it's crazy like how much these guys were allowed to get away with as well in terms of like making their movies.
Yeah.
Cuz you'd think like how, I don't even know how you would pitch something like this now.
George Lucas got
E.T. Right?
Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Really? Oh, okay.
Which like makes sense why George Lucas would be like, that's gonna obviously make it. So like George Lucas made about $13 million from that deal, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
But Spielberg made over $40 million.
Yeah.
Which is like, that ain't chump change.
It's crazy how well these guys did so quickly too.
Yeah.
Because,
and consistently.
Yeah.
Like obviously George Lucas like had Star Wars and like not much else, but he also did Indiana Jones.
Yeah. But like as soon as Spielberg is like really making movies, he's making movies that are making money, and doing well and getting good critical reviews. It's just insane. And I hope that something like that comes back, because I'm kind of like, they went through an era before that where it was like very studio heavy, very like a lot of musicals, not very much like interesting things going in to the box office, which is kind of where we are.
Yeah.
I feel now. So I hope that like some of the shackles kind of come off again, and like people start like great creatives start being able to make interesting stuff again.
Yeah. I feel like we are kind of headed there.
But like,
and hopefully it's true.
But then it's like Barry Jenkins is making Lion King 2. Greta Gerwig's making Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah.
Damien Chazelle, I don't know if what his next movie's going to be, but it's going to be a hard sell after how Babylon did.
It's kind of a bummer, because it's like these studio movies have been happening, and then on the side these great directors have been making like great smaller movies. And it's like you see that and you hope that means that these great directors are going to get bigger budgets to make the stuff that they want to make, but it's actually instead the franchises are just pulling in these directors to make franchise movies for them. And it's like, okay, I guess maybe these franchise movies will be better now that like they've got good directors, but like
give
us
the
new
ceiling
shit
on Lion King, Mufasa's whatever the fuck, not Mufasa, Skarsgård.
Oh wait, is it Simba's Pride?
No, it's not. It's like some like Den of Thieves.
Wait, are they doing a prequel?
I don't know.
Because here's the thing. If they did Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, with Kovu, I might be interested, even though
because you had like kind
lifeless.
of a thing for Kovu, huh?
Not for Kovu. Just that movie in general is so good. It's got one of my favorite Disney songs ever.
What is Mufasa the Lion King is what it's called. Apparently.
What's the fucking song from that movie?
I Just Can't Wait to Be King.
No.
Simba, having become the king of the Pride Lands, is determined for his cub to follow in his paw prints when the
Deception, disgrace, evil as big
it's supposed
as
to
the
come
scar
out
on
this
his
Christmas.
face. Anyway, that's an absolute banger.
Dude. Oh, Calvin Harrison is in that.
Okay, we're getting off topic.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I do kind of want to talk about the negative reception to this movie. Not when it was released, but as it was like getting towards release, because George Lucas had a lot of filmmaker friends. He was showing it off. And maybe aside from Steven Spielberg, almost everyone was like, George, like I got no idea what's going on. Like this is just complete schlock. And he was like kind of freaking out, panicking. And his wife at the time, Marcia Lucas, she was a film editor. And she was like, George, give me the footage and I'll see what I can like piece together and like put together. And she put together an edit of the movie which was the theatrical release of the movie, because her edit, when shown to people were like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. When before, I don't know if it was George editing it or if it was just other editors, but like everyone was just like, this is schlock. Then Marcia Lucas jumps in, and I wouldn't be surprised if like the original cut started with Luke on Tatooine and then went into stuff, but like she was just able to kind of like pace it well
and like decode kind of what he had.
Yeah. And be like, it's like when like someone's like says like a friend says something and someone's like, I have no idea what they're saying, and it's like they're trying to say this. It's like how do you know what they're saying? It's
like when I talk.
Yeah. And it's and it's literally like that, where I think she was like, I can see what he's trying to do. It's just, it's not coming across, but she was able to do it. So kind of like truly Marcia Lucas was like the savior of Star Wars. And she doesn't get enough credit. But yeah, critical reception to this movie was obviously insane.
Good. Yeah.
Let me see if I can. Excuse me, didn't mean to do that.
Really? You didn't mean to do that?
So Roger Ebert called the film an out-of-body experience and compared the special effects to 2001: A Space Odyssey.
The first time he came? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he opined... Oh, the word opined. He opined that the true strength of the film was that it was pure narrative, which I believe is true. Like
I agree with that as well.
It's like Olivia and I were talking about like what is the like theme of this movie, and like I do think that as silly as it sounds, the theme is hope. Like the whole time they're kind of like facing these insurmountable odds, and they all kind of just like they have to believe that there's a chance, otherwise like what is there?
Yeah. And hope does get them out of a lot of situations, which is something I don't love. Like there are a lot of times where it's like so convenient what happens.
Like
right?
What?
Well, like even at a base level, the droid that they pick instead of R2 fuzzing out.
Yeah.
It's just something where you're like,
he's got a bad motivator.
Yeah. It's just like, of course.
Do you want to know the like the after the fact retcon reason for that?
Why?
R2D2 communicated with that droid R5D4 and was like, dude, I'm on like a special mission. I simply must be bought by these guys. And that R5D4 intentionally blew his motivator so he wouldn't be purchased.
I guess. But it's like, even, or like with the trash compactor where it's like, just in the nick of time, they get it. Or like, there are these things where like, I mean, like the thing with the trash compactor is like, Luke, Leia, and Han are saved because in the nick of time, C-3PO can do something, which is an okay reason.
Yeah.
But it's like an easier reason than Luke, Leia, and Han figure out what to do to get out of there.
Yeah.
Which is like, again, not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But it is like, I think it plays into the thing of like, they have hope. They are like moving in the right direction, trying to do the right thing. So the world around them is kind of helping them. And like this unknowable force, the Force, is also like aligning the world so that they can reach this goal. Yeah. Is kind of how I take it, where it's like, there are times where it's just like they're in a corner and then something happens and then they get out of the corner.
Sure.
Which I think is okay.
Yeah.
It's just something that like,
and I think it's mostly a thing in this movie. Like the truth is that this movie is like incredible and like truly masterful. I do think that like it does struggle a little bit in that there's it is like pure plot. Yeah. That it doesn't really have much outside of like, it's kind of why the characters are so good. Like most of what you get is from the characters because there's not really like that is what to grab onto. Like even if like it's kind of just going from sequence to sequence, like the tension and like caring about the characters who are in this situation is kind of what is driving interest at all. But
I think also like the characters are well defined enough for that to work.
Yeah.
But then in Empire, it like notches it up a little more, and you're like, okay, I like literally love these characters.
Yeah,
Instead of
exactly.
just like, okay, I like these people. I hope they accomplish this mission.
Well, because in this one, you don't really know if you like them.
Yeah.
Like, Luke's a little bit annoying. Like, Han is, like, kind of
What's
a
the
bad
one
guy.
line where he sounds like such a little baby?
Oh, I was going to go to Tashi Station and pick up some power converters.
That's literally what I wrote down.
Yeah.
It's
like,
horrendous.
It's weird because, like, he is... Mark Hamill in this movie is, like, not the greatest actor in the world. He gets a lot better in the next two.
Yeah.
But in this movie, he's like not amazing, but he is kind of like perfect for like the naive, like starry-eyed, like, or what's the bushy-tailed,
Yeah.
big-eyed,
sure.
bushy-tailed, like, little kid who just wants adventure and, like, doesn't really know anything about anything, but he's really confident about, like, he kind of is that perfectly. Like, when they're in the cantina and, like, Han's like, yeah, it'll cost you 10,000 credits for me to do this. And Luke's like, 10,000 for a ship? We could find a ship of our own. And whatever. And Han's like, who's going to fly it? You? He's like, yeah, I could fly it. And it's like... He's kind of humbled right there that, like, Han's like, actually, you would stand no chance, brother. Like, you have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And, like, the dynamic between Han and Luke, where, like, Luke is just constantly, like, vying for, like, approval and, like, to prove himself and, like, have Han, like, think that he's good at anything. And, like, Han can tell that Luke wants that.
Yeah.
So, like, obviously he's not going to give it to him. So, like, he's constantly trying to, like, show him up a little bit. Like, when Luke is like, what do you think of the princess? And Han's like, whatever. And then Luke's like, good. And then Han's like, oh, he's interested in her. So then he's like, I don't know. She's pretty cool, actually. And you think me and her together? And, like, he's just perfect at pushing his buttons. But
He's
then, like,
immediately bricked up by his sister.
yeah, we'll get into that. But, like, it all comes together in the end, like, when Luke's like, what, you're just, like, leaving?
Yeah.
And Han's like, well, I'm not going to go kill myself on this mission. And then he's like, you should come with us. Like, you're good in a fight. We could use you. Like, that must feel so good to Luke, because that's kind of, like, all he wants is to, like, prove himself and be accepted. But by that point, it's like, he's found, like, a new purpose. Like, he's actually found what he really cares about beyond, like, frivolous adventure. So it's like, I don't know. By that point, it's like he gets what he wants, but it's no longer really what he needs. He's like, what he really needs is to, like...
It's like such classical screenwriting. Like, they talk about this, A New Hope, a lot, or they did when I went to film school, like, about just, like, this is what he wants, but this is what he needs. And this is, like, the steps that it takes to get there in the script.
Yeah.
And, like, this is a good way to try and approach writing a character. Just in general, to have, like, him going for something, but then discover what he needs.
Yeah.
Which is just, like, it's one of... I feel like George Lucas is great at the big stuff.
He's just bad at dialogue.
And then, just bad at the little things.
Yeah.
Like... the whole journey of these characters is great, but then I'm watching this and I'm like, I don't know what about it I was feeling, but with Han specifically, I was like, I feel like he's just not like he's there, but he's not like the Han that I love yet, you know?
Well, it's kind of
where it's
the
just
thing
like
of,
some
like,
little thing wasn't there that he needed help to find.
I think what it is really in this movie is that, like, he doesn't know that thing. Like, he doesn't have that thing. Like, in this movie, he's, like, fully just, like, in it for the money, only cares about himself. The characters are constantly reminding him of that.
Yeah.
He's like, what about it? Like, he is meant to kind of be, like, a little bit unlikable, because it's like he's truly just a very selfish character. But it's not until he, like, sees, like, Luke kind of needs Han to, like, put him in his place and kind of, like, show him that, like, life's a little rougher than like he thinks it is, and it's not as cut and dry as like he may have thought it was when he was looking at the binary sunset on Tatooine. But like Han also kind of needs Luke, because he kind of needs that innocence to kind of be shown like that, like cynicism is not always really the answer. Like sometimes having hope and having like a fighting chance and like doing something not just because it serves yourself, like there is something to be had there, which then is why Han obviously comes back at the end to like help Luke and save the day. But I don't know, I really realized it watching the movie this time. Star Wars talks a lot about like, or doesn't talk a lot about, but like the trios of the movies are very like heavily emphasized, where it's like Han, Luke, and Leia, and then it's Padme, Obi-Wan, and Anakin, and then it's Rey, Finn, and Poe. But like, man, none of them hold a candle to Han, Luke, and Leia.
Yeah.
Like they truly, like each of them individually, them as a trio, and then like each combined duo have such interesting relationships to each other.
Like with Anakin, Padme, and Obi-Wan. When it's Padme and Obi-Wan, you're kind of like, the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
Like why?
They kind of make it work in the Clone Wars show, but in the movies, that's not really a trio.
Yeah. It's just like there are 3 people in this movie.
Yeah. Like maybe the closest they come to being a trio is in Attack of the Clones when they're in the like Geonosian Arena. But then Rey, Finn, and Poe.
That's a great. I love the Geonosian Arena.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just so. Another thing I kept thinking about was just all the Lego Star Wars.
Oh yeah, it's
games.
so hard not to be like, I remember doing this in Lego Star Wars, like every single time.
But then Poe,
Finn, and Rey,
yeah.
like Finn and Rey have an interesting relationship in Force Awakens, and Finn and Poe have an interesting relationship in Force Awakens. Then in Last Jedi, all 3 of them are split up.
Yeah.
And don't hang out with each other at all. And then finally in Rise of Skywalker, they're pulled together. And they all kind of hate each other and are yelling at each other.
Poe have just met the first time.
Yeah, Rey and Poe meet at the end of Last Jedi. So it's like, even them I wouldn't even consider a trio. And that's kind of what I hate about the sequels compared to like the prequels, which we'll get into. But like, in the original trilogy, like when Han, Luke, and Leia have like a moment together at the end of each film, or like specifically at the end of the whole trilogy in Return of the Jedi, you're like, wow, these 3 have been through so much together. In the prequel trilogy, they don't really have a moment like that because they're not really pretending that there's a trio.
Yeah. In the sequels, they don't do shit together the whole time. And then it ends with them having this moment that's like, we did it. Us 3 did it as a band together. We've been through so... And it's like, I don't believe you. Yeah.
Like 5 minutes ago, you were yelling at each other and you met each other like
Sounds
a month
like some
ago.
foreshadowing for what these later episodes are going to be like.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I don't want to talk about Rise of Skywalker in the New Hope episode, but I'm mostly just saying this to say that like these 3 characters are like so iconic as a trio, like really like,
and just work so well.
And they work so well, and they only get better.
Maybe only rivaled by Brian, Dom, and Mia.
Sure.
Just saying. Watching this movie made me want to be 10 in 1977.
Yeah, man.
It's one of those things where it's like,
dude, you know how some people will be like, if you could travel back in time, like, what would you do? And people are like, I would see the dinosaurs, or like
you'd
some
be like,
bullshit.
Make me a boomer.
Literally every single time someone asks me, I'm like, I would go back and I'd literally just watch the Star Wars films in theaters.
That's it? You wouldn't, I guess you would have your whole memory.
Yeah. I mean, if I could, I would wipe my memory of like all Star Wars knowledge.
I'd still go back to like some ancient history because that seems slightly, more important, less documented. But yeah, I agree with you where it's kind of like to watch these, to be 10 and be your dad be like, let's go to see Star Wars.
Yeah.
And then you go and it's just like this mind-blowing experience.
Well, even
Would have
if
been
my
amazing.
mind wasn't wiped of all Star Wars knowledge, like I'm someone who likes to watch like theater reaction videos once in a while, just because I like.
Damn,
relive it or
imagine
whatever.
that. You
But
know?
like just sitting, the idea of sitting in a theater and being like, dude, people are about to bust a nut at what's about to happen.
Let's bust nuts.
Like, because apparently, like, the Death Star trench run in this movie, like, insane in the theaters. Like, people had no, because like people didn't know there was going to be more Star Wars.
yeah, George
So, like,
Lucas didn't even know.
Yeah, George Lucas didn't even know. Like, he'd written them.
That's why he just called it Star Wars, though.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
I mean, he went on vacation during the premiere because he
Yeah.
thought it was going to flop. But like, apparently that just like went insane because people were like, the odds are like unimaginably bad, and like we don't know if they're going to succeed. And apparently it just went nuts and was awesome, and I would just love that. And it's so tense.
It's also one of these things that happens in so many movies now because this is such a well-written movie. Everyone's like, let's do the Star Wars thing. Where it's like
Yeah.
kind of like that in like Top Gun Maverick, I think is a good example where it's like they have their trench run at the end, but also it's
Yeah.
like, well, Tom Cruise isn't dying. Miles Teller isn't dying. Glenn Powell's not dying. So
Yeah.
like, what the fuck do I care about this
Yeah.
for? Or like any Marvel movie where you're like, none of these freaks are dying, and also I know beforehand if they're going to be in the next movie or not.
Exactly. I mean, and even like in this one, knowing that they make it out, like I've watched this movie a million times, but still watching the trench run, I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, you're
It's
cutting
electric.
it close, brother. You're cutting it
Yeah.
close. And like the Empire's like picking off the rebels one by one, and I'm like, geez, Jack Porkins died.
Yeah.
Frickin-
And then he throws his little fucking thing away, and you're like, this kid's an asshole.
Well,
Why is
yeah,
he doing this?
We were talking about that when we were watching it, and I was like, dude, if I was in this planet that's about to be blown up, and I'm like, why'd you turn off your targeting computer? And he's like, it's okay, I'm all right. I'm going, turn it on.
Back
What?
on now.
Yeah. But like,
Yeah.
because that's the thing. If he, I mean, I was gonna say if he messed it up and didn't blow up the Death Star, like they'd be pissed. But I realized they'd be dead, so they wouldn't be pissed. But like the fact that he did it, he immediately becomes a legend.
Yeah.
Obviously. But yeah, that's so intense.
You think Luke's a virgin?
Oh, at this point, yes. Honestly, actually, I think he is at the end of Return of the Jedi as well.
Lame. Yeah. It's just like, I don't know what other, like the movie just kind of moves.
Yeah.
So there's not really like specific things to talk
Well,
about. We talked about Mos Eisley a little bit.
Well, there's Mos Eisley, and then there's like, the sequence where like, we how have we not talked about Grand Moff Tarkin or Darth Vader?
That's actually true.
Okay,
yeah.
so let's talk about the villains for a minute. So Darth Vader introduced like basically very beginning of the movie. There's like the rebels fighting the stormtroopers, and it looks so good. It's so grungy and like.
But actually, he went on the ship and he killed everyone really cool. Like in Rogue One.
Well, that was a different location though.
Oh, they didn't.
The door that he's trying to get through that he doesn't get through is the door to get onto the ship. That is at the beginning of this movie.
Oh, interesting. I thought that in Rogue One they were just like, let's make this shit cooler.
No,
Okay.
it is. I mean, it is kind of to make it cooler. But like, yeah, that's him trying to get onto the ship.
I just love that he doesn't do the thing that he does in Rogue One.
Yeah.
Because that's so much scarier.
Yeah, well, he just walks in and he looks around and he's like, "Yep, they're all dead."
Yeah.
and just like keeps walking. He just like immediately a foreboding presence. And like the interesting thing about Vader in this one that he doesn't really do in most of the almost any of the other ones is he like yells.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's like, tear the ship apart.
Yeah.
And it's like in all the other ones he's just like, which is like almost scarier. But like there is kind of something about like seeing the desperation of him in this one where he's actually yelling.
Well, because I think it's because in this one he's got a boss, kind of.
Yeah.
Whereas in the other ones he's more left to his own resources.
Well, that's kind
Right?
of why I want to talk about Tarkin.
Yeah.
Because like Darth Vader introduced immediately kind of the most iconic villain of like
In like
film
probably,
fiction.
Yeah.
Like by look, by the way he acts, by how
Just
he talks,
sound,
like,
even
everything.
like just his aura.
Yeah.
Of like in scenes that he's in but not being shown in, his breathing in the background
Yeah.
is just amazing.
It's like he is like the personification of evil. And then there's like this old guy, Imperial officer, and he tells him what to do. Like in the like conference room scene where Admiral Mahdi is like talking about like, there's literally no chance for the rebels. Like, we have the greatest superpower in the universe. And how Vader's like, what's the line? It's like, any sort of like weapon is insignificant compared to the power of the Force. And Admiral Mahdi's like, don't threaten us with your sorcerer's ways, Vader. And he's like shit talking him. And Vader's just like, fine, bitch. Just like starts fucking choking him. Which, by the way, the acting of him to like be like choked by nothing is so good.
Yeah, I wrote that down. I was like, he did incredible choking acting there.
Oh yeah. And I think that like we've seen like force chokes happen like a lot after this. And like I think in general, like when people are choked in original trilogy, it looks really good. But like I don't think it's ever topped like by anyone aside from Admiral Mahdi's character.
Well, later on it's just like,
well, they're just like, but like
Yeah.
his like neck flexing and like,
Yeah.
it's like, it's so good. But the fact that he's like choking him out and that Tarkin's just like, stop. And
Yeah.
Vader's like, as you wish. Like, okay. But I also find it so interesting that like everybody is basically like even Tarkin talks to Vader like, nobody fucking follows your religion anymore. You're like
he's like his assistant or something.
Yeah, you're like an outcast of like this dead religion where you like play with the air or like whatever, and everyone's just kind of, nobody takes it seriously really. Obviously people are scared of him.
Yeah.
But like it's cool to see Tarkin and like the other Imperial officers doubt Vader and doubt his dedication to the Force, and then see Han Solo doubt Luke and Ben and their dedication to the Force and be like, hokey religions ain't no match for a good old blaster at your side or whatever. It's like seeing that kind of makes you go, oh, so like the Force in general is like mystical. It's not that like the bad guys have got it down and like Luke doesn't know what he's doing. It's like, no, the Force is very mysterious and unknown. Anyway, that was kind of
also just like the drop that Obi-Wan, or like I think they're talking about Obi-Wan, how he fought in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
That's just so cool that was just like in the movie, and it's like,
and it meant nothing.
that's just so fucking sick.
Yeah.
That George Lucas was like, yes, and he fought in the Clone Wars. And everyone's like, wait, what the fuck are the Clone Wars?
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
And something I noticed that I've never noticed before is that when Leia is giving like her like thing, and she's like, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. And Luke's like, Obi-Wan Kenobi, I wonder if she means old Ben Kenobi. It's like, yeah, you're right on the fucking money, moron. Like, it's barely a different name. But
yeah.
But anyway.
Also the fact that he was like, I need to be anonymous. I'm going to go by Old Ben. It sounds so different from OB.
Yeah, instead of Obi-Wan Kenobi, I'll be Old Ben Kenobi. Anyway, it's good job, bud. And the fact that they're trying to hide Luke and they're like, let's give him the same last name and put him on his uncle's farm. But like, that's all like later shit is the truth.
Yeah.
Like the real world answer is like that stuff that they didn't really figure out till later.
And
but, like,
which is completely fine with me.
it's literally fine.
Because looking at this movie, it's incredible.
Yeah. But like when something I noticed kind of on the Clone Wars point is that Leia addresses Obi-Wan as General Kenobi at the beginning of the message, which I never really clocked before because I just like hear that and I'm like, oh yeah, he's General Kenobi. Like we've heard Grievous call him General Kenobi. I've seen Clone Wars where everyone, like all the clones are calling him General Kenobi, whatever. But like, I never really realized that like in the context of this movie, like referring to this old hermit man who like we just know as Old Ben, referring to him as General Kenobi. It's like, oh, he's been through shit. The Clone Wars?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's just insane.
Which is like why I would love to watch it fresh.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then just lightsabers.
Yeah.
Because there's not that much lightsaber stuff in this movie.
No.
And
There's honestly not much lightsaber stuff in the original trilogy compared to like the others.
Compared to the prequels, it's like, oh, there's none.
Yeah.
Compared to the sequels are kind of weird about the lightsabers,
Yeah.
honestly. But in this, they strike such a good balance of having these like mystical things that are so fucking cool.
Yeah.
But also like you kind of don't know how dangerous they are. And then when they actually do fight, it's like a great fight, even though it is kind of like a samurai fight where you're not like, it's just like,
it's like actually like a sword fight.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see why they were originally called laser swords because they're literally like swords. And what I love is like, even in like all the remasters and like reconfigures or whatever, you can still see like, because they were using like metal poles basically,
and
with
they had
like
like
reflective
sparkles,
tape on them. And that's how they like got them to appear white. But like you can still see when they hit them together, you can see dust falling, which is like, anyway, I just find that so funny. But like a lot of people criticize that because they're used to like prequel fighting and they're like, oh, it's so slow. And it's like, I kind of like how methodical it is.
And how like tense everything is as well.
Yeah.
Because it's like in the prequels, lightsabers, the danger of lightsabers doesn't really mean anything if 999 out of 1,000 strikes is going to just be blocked in some crazy way.
Yeah.
Whereas like with this, it's like every swing they could die.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like that in the prequels because it's just so fast paced. And the choreography is like pretty fucking cool in the prequels.
Yeah. Well, because it's almost like they're dancing rather than they're fighting, which like the explanation is that like that's Jedi in their prime.
Yeah.
So like they're able to sense where the next blow's coming from and predict it like 2 moves ahead, and they're able. But like, and it is cool, and I'm glad we have those. But like there is also something about like the original trilogy fights that are like a lot more thought out. In Empire and like Jedi, they're like a little bit more they're a little more active. Obviously this is Alec Guinness doing it.
Yeah, he's old.
Well, the thing is he was only 62 in this movie.
But 62 in the 70s
true.
That's an old 62.
That's true. But yeah, I like how methodical and slow it is because it feels like they're really like trying to figure each other out, which is cool.
And I have a question.
Yeah.
The disappearing of Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Is that just how kind of Jedis die?
First
or
of all,
like,
just so we're getting this off the bat before we do the rest of the movies, the plural of Jedi is Jedi. Just so we're clear.
did I say Jedis?
Yeah.
I don't care.
I know. I'm just letting you know.
The Jedis?
There it is.
Is that how they die?
No. So I mean, I guess at the time of the creation of the original trilogy, yes, because we only see 2 Jedi die, and that's Obi-Wan and Yoda, and they both disappear. But like the canon answer is that like, because plenty like Qui-Gon doesn't disappear when he dies.
Yeah, he just gets sliced right the fucking half.
Yeah, there's a bunch of Jedi that die in Attack of the Clones. They don't die. The Order 66, like a bunch of Jedi die. And in the Clone Wars as well, and they don't disappear. The canon explanation is that like there are very few Jedi that understand how to like become one with the Force and like enter the afterlife. Basically, the first to ever learn how to do so was Qui-Gon, and then through the Force he taught Yoda. And then Yoda tipped off Obi-Wan, which we'll get to it in Revenge of the Sith. But like, there's a scene where Yoda's like, I'll teach you how to talk to Qui-Gon, and he'll teach you about like the afterlife or whatever. It's a very quick like kind of gloss over, but like
he mentions like Qui-Gon.
Yeah,
I didn't even catch that.
yeah. Well, in Revenge of the Sith, not
Oh, sorry. I thought you
not
meant
in this movie.
Yeah,
that would be insane.
Sorry, I thought you
if
meant
they mentioned it
Empire.
in this movie.
I was like,
No.
Okay.
We'll get to. Maybe I said Empire by accident, but
I don't know.
But like, so that's the explanation as to why Obi-Wan and Yoda disappear is because like they
Have transcended basically.
yeah, they've like gone through the training and the process and the trials to achieve the afterlife, basically.
And I guess Darth Vader
Also
does. Okay, but they burn his body.
Yeah. That one's a bit because he learned how to do it when he was a Sith.
Okay,
So like
maybe it's a little different.
I'm sure there's some graphic novel that explains it, but it's just a little different. Anyway.
Okay. Not to step on Return of the Jedi at all. I just
No, that's fine.
I just didn't. I've never really understood why that happens, whereas like with other people, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So that was just my main question.
It is like a Jedi thing, but it's a specifically Obi-Wan and Yoda thing.
So where do you want to go from here? How are you feeling?
So I do want to talk, because I got a bit sidetracked, I do want to talk a little bit about Tarkin. Just
Okay,
because
right,
Peter
Tarkin.
Cushing is so good. Like, when they're like, I keep going like this on the table,
it's
and I
okay.
don't know what that means. I think that's me talking.
Okay.
But when they're like, they bring Leia up, and they're like, tell us where the rebel base is, and she's like, not a chance, you're stinky. Like,
Yeah.
she says like, I should have noticed your foul stench when I came on board. And it's like, imagine if you were kidnapped by Vladimir Putin and you were kept in like
I'd razz him a little bit.
the like, what is it, the gulag?
The gulag? Yeah.
You were kept in the gulag, and then they like took you up and they had you in front of Vladimir Putin, and you go, I should have known you were here because you're so stinky. You stink so much. And I'm like, wow, but that is just like a bold move.
Side note, it's
Yeah.
insane that Call of Duty called the thing where you go to after you die in war. What is it?
Warzone.
The gulag.
Yeah, crazy.
That's just not allowed, I don't think.
Well,
It's like a slave camp, man.
it's bad. But anyway, Peter Cushing in that scene is just like so good. The way he's like, the authority that he has to kind of just like with full confidence push Leia like more and more to the fact where she's just like no, and then he's like, all right, I guess we'll blow up your entire home planet. And
Yeah.
then she's like, no, and he's like, do you have another target, a military target?
Yeah.
Then name the system. And she's like and just like names another random
Dan
planet.
Tween, I think.
Dantooine, yeah. And then he's like, okay, cool, we'll head to Dantooine, but first we are still going to blow up your planet. And like the fact that she's like, dude, the idea that they made her watch like almost everyone she's ever known.
Dude, that's insane. I was
like,
thinking about that.
It's her parents, the rest of her family, her friends, her
Any coworker she
coworkers,
had,
'cause she's a
anyone she
princess,
went to
so, like-
school with.
yeah, she was in politics, so she probably knew people, like all of her classmates, and then also all of her people, because she's a princess.
Yeah.
And she literally witnesses them. That is like, I mean, I remember people talking about it around the time that like Last Jedi came out, when people are like, no one in Star Wars has suffered as much loss as Leia.
It's almost as bad as 9/11.
You've put me in a tricky place here because numbers wise,
For sure.
it's worse.
Yeah.
But one actually happened.
Well, this was a long, long ago in a galaxy
true.
far, far away.
That's true. I shouldn't speak as to whether or not it happened.
Some would say George Lucas came up with this while tripping on DMT, and he accessed the history of the human race when he came up with these ideas. Any thoughts on that?
Just one. Anyway, so Tarkin's just like so insane.
He's such an incredible villain.
He's so good. So fun fact, I've done Star Wars trivia a couple times.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
At this previous one, there was like a mid-round like kind of like chance for bonus points among the top teams, and we had to argue for who the best villain in Star Wars was, and they came to me and I was like, I'll probably go with Darth Maul, and they were like, he's already been chosen. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll go with Darth Vader, and they were like, he's already been taken actually. And I was like, fucking Count Dooku, and it was like, already taken actually. And I was like, goodness me, like I don't want to do Palpatine because this was like pretty fresh after Rise of Skywalker,
and
so I was kind of
Palpatine
down on
is, like,
Palpatine.
Yeah.
So I chose Tarkin because I was like, this might be an out of left field kind of underrated pick, but like he really is the one that is like in charge of the like greatest villain in film history, arguably. Mm-hmm. But he's the guy that's like, stop it. Like, you do what I tell you, please. Mm-hmm. And he just listens because he demands his respect. And I think that's like so impressive. And Peter Cushing is so good, like so effortlessly as well.
And then even at the end, when it's like the rebels are attacking, do you want to get on the like exit ship?
Like,
and he's
not
like,
even do you want to get off? It's just like, do you want me to prepare the ship
yeah, and he's
in
like,
case?
What the fuck? No.
Yeah, he's like, during our moment of triumph, you overestimate their chances. And it's like, brother, like this is kind of like the whole thing of the Empire, but like your hubris is really getting the better of you.
Yeah.
You underestimate their chances.
And I don't know if there's a better like Empire villain than him. Like,
I think the only one that comes close is Admiral Piet from he's in Empire and Return of the Jedi, mostly in Empire. Mm-hmm. But he's the one that like is promoted because Vader chokes out Admiral Ozzel in the next one. But
like the sequel people, they don't even really reach it.
It's something I realized watching these three movies is that like the original trilogy does something as far as like the Empire and the Imperial officers, where I'm like, every time I see one, I'm like, oh, you're a bad guy.
Yeah,
I'm like,
because he's British.
Maybe, but like most of the like officers in the sequel trilogy are also British. But when I see them, I'm just like,
it feels like a kid playing dress up.
Exactly,
because they're always yelling. I think.
Yeah,
like all of the iconic Empire stuff is them being like, "Find that woman, find her, and kill her." Yeah. Whereas this is like, Vader, no. Yeah, like why would we leave? Let's.
Well, you know what I think it is.
Us. Like it's just.
I think it's like they have General Hux. They have like
isn't like Domhnall Gleeson one?
Yeah, well he's General Hux.
Okay.
But like
and
they
like
have
Ben
maybe
Mendelsohn.
like 4 Ben Mendelsohn is like in Rogue One, and he's one that's actually like kind of good because he's like kind of desperate. He's like a desperate, kind of like a little bit pathetic.
I guess we'll see when we get to that.
We'll see when we get. I think he's pretty good. But like in the sequels, like it just feels like every time they introduce one, they're like, and he's like so evil, and he's like in command. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what's cool about so many of these Imperial officers is that like they aren't in command. Mm-hmm. Like they have some power, but they're mostly just doing what they're told so in hopes that they'll get promoted to the next thing so that they can have more power. That's the whole thing of the Empire, is that everyone wants to be the next like position up. But like Tarkin's really the only one that's like, he's got like a lot of power. Like he's got a lot of influence. And there's not really any sort of officer anywhere that's come close to like, like filling that role. So yeah, the Imperial officers in the entire original trilogy are like kind of unmatched. Yeah. And Tarkin is kind of like the embodiment of that.
Yeah. I think he's just so calm.
Yeah.
Which is just so scary. Mm-hmm. Like when he blows up the ship, he's not like, blow up her planet, no.
And he like even like smiles once in a while. Like even when
he feels like a genuine psycho, whereas these other guys feel like they're trying to be.
Well, they feel like psychos. He feels like a socio.
Yeah, I guess that's a fair.
Where they're like blah blah, and he's like, "You may fire when ready." And it's like, why are you so quiet? You're about to kill millions and millions of people.
Yeah,
like pretty insane. So I think that's enough to talk about Tarkin. I just think that he's like one of the best Star Wars villains and very underrated.
Now, we're an hour and a half in. We haven't really talked about C-3PO or R2.
Let's do that then. Thoughts on them in general?
I think it is mind-boggling to me that these characters exist. I'm watching the first desert part, and I'm like, we're just watching this gold fucker and this little blue boy run around the desert, and it's good?
Yeah.
Like, that is so insane that there's like 15 minutes where it's just them.
Yeah, where they're like, we're not going to show humans for a bit.
Yeah. And then they get trapped by those guys, and that's such a...
The Jawas.
Yeah, the Jawas. I love that. Those guys get them. They get like...
They go into the thing that's big, and then they go out of it.
Roughly. But they get captured by the Jawas, and you're like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
Like, but
like, they don't know what's happening, which
Yeah.
kind of like makes it work.
And C-3PO is such a fucking dick.
Dude.
He sucks so much.
But like, it's so amazing because like when people didn't like Jar Jar Binks in the prequels, George Lucas was like, or people didn't like C-3PO at first. People hated R2-D2 at first. It's like, first of all, I don't believe people hated R2-D2 at first.
I don't think that.
But like, I do believe that like people found 3PO annoying. But the difference is 3PO is like, 3PO is annoying, and he's like,
he's a person that you would know and be
Yeah.
annoyed by.
yeah, Jar Jar is a cartoon. Like,
And like a little insensitive and a
Yes.
little just like annoying to be annoying, and his voice is stupid and he is stupid.
well, that's the thing. 3PO is annoying because he's like the voice of reason all the time.
Yeah.
When the voice of reason is not wanted.
Yeah.
And he's like very like uppity about it. Whereas like Jar Jar is
And he's not even right most of the time either,
Yeah.
which is also annoying.
Yeah. But like Jar Jar is annoying because he is an attempt to be funny. 3PO is not an attempt to be funny. He has lines that are supposed to be comedic relief, but like he as a character as a whole isn't supposed to be funny. Like, but he is. Whereas like Jar Jar is meant to be funny, but he's just annoying.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think that's the problem, is that like with Jar Jar, it kind of feels like they're trying to convince you to think he's funny, and it's like, I'm sorry, he's not. Whereas 3PO, it's like, he's funny when he is, he's annoying when he is not, you know? But yeah, 3PO's like, 3PO is lovable because of his relationship to R2. Kind of like, because R2 is like the perfect companion character. Like the fact that he just talks in beeps and whistles. We don't know what he's saying, but like you do know what he's saying, and also like he's endearing and you like him, but you also know that he's like kind of feisty and like inappropriate sometimes. Like they're just so good as a pair because R2 is lovable and inappropriate, whereas like 3PO is like kind of like uptight and like proper. So they kind of like clash, but they very clearly also care about each other.
Yeah.
And like at this point we hadn't seen anything else, but like it's still very clear that they've like been through a lot together. Like these two droids have like existed together for a long time. And I love that like in this movie, but also in like a lot of the other movies, 3PO is like not let in on the plan at all, but R2 is. So all these characters are like, R2, we trust you, like you're dependable, and everyone's like, don't tell 3PO, he'll probably freak out and fuck it up.
Or he'll tell someone, and like
Yeah.
just an absolute hazard.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even like really do much.
No. And when he does, he kind of like does it like yeah, he saves them from the trash compactor, but it's after he's like, oh, my comlink? Yeah, I turned it off. I didn't really know. And it's like, turn it on.
Yeah.
Like it's like, even when he's like, well, I guess I turned it off, it's like, you are taking too long to turn it back on. And it's like, that's kind of like, and I love moments like when they hide in the closet and then like the stormtroopers open it and they're like, what are you doing in there? And they're like, and 3PO's like, they're crazy. They went to the detention block. Oh, you should go get them. It's like he's so good at like playing the helpless droid because like he kind of is.
He can't do shit. He's the worst character in the Lego game.
Yeah. In the new Lego game, they give him a little more to do, which is nice. He's able to like break apart into 2 bits and like.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Kind of cool. But he was always the worst. I did like how you could. as he lost hearts as him in the original game, he would lose limbs. I
Oh,
thought
that's
it was
kind of funny.
But anyway, but like I do also like that once in a while you see a little bit of 3PO like kind of knowing what to do. Like when like right after the scene I just mentioned where they're like, go to the detention center. Like they leave one stormtrooper behind to guard the door, and 3PO goes up and he's like, my droid friend here is malfunctioning. I was gonna take him to the incinerator or take him to get reprogrammed, and he's like very like confidently saying that, and the stormtrooper's like, okay, whatever, and like goes by, and he's like, 3PO is like good when he needs to be, but like he's also kind of a good like. He's kind of the damsel in distress.
Yeah.
Because, like, Leia's certainly not the damsel in distress. So it's kind of 3PO, but he kind of does it to himself.
It's so wild that, like, how the sequence of characters is introduced.
Yeah.
Where it's like you kind of get Leia, but then
you get
she's
a little bit of
she's
Leia.
gone basically until she's, like, there's the things of, like, torture her and destroy her planet. But, like, she's not in the movie until she gets saved again.
Yeah.
So it's, like, a little bit of Leia. Then you're with C-3PO and R2 and C-3PO for like a long time. And then 20 minutes in, you get introduced to the main character.
Yeah.
And then 20 minutes after that,
Han is introduced
to
at like
Han.
the 43rd minute or
Yeah.
something. And this movie's only an hour and a half. Or no, it's almost 2 hours, I think.
Yeah, it's almost 2 hours. But then you get Han like almost halfway through.
Yeah.
And then Leia like 20 or 30 minutes after that.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, it's crazy that worked.
Yeah.
You know?
And that
it's
by the
worked
end,
so
you're
well.
like, I know all of these three.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane. That's why, like, there's so many movies that I'll watch nowadays where, like, by the end, I'm like, I barely know these guys.
Yeah.
But the movie's, like, 3 hours long. And then I'm like, yeah, but I guess, like, it got to the point where I was conditioned where I'm like, yeah, but, like, I guess I haven't seen, like, the next couple movies, so I'll probably get to know them over those movies. And it's like, but no, like, there are movies like the original Star Wars where, like,
You know them by the end of that one movie.
yes, after 2 hours, you know these three characters quite well.
Yeah.
And you got introduced, for the most part, to two of them about halfway through the movie. And it's like, it's really, that's why, like, people talk about, like, lightsabers and spaceships and, like stormtroopers.
Like the
and all this
aesthetics
stuff.
of Star Wars.
Yeah, but it's like, at its core, Star Wars has always been about the characters.
Yeah.
Like,
These first three are good stories, and
Yeah.
that's what makes them work.
Yeah.
And then we'll get into the other ones later.
Yeah.
But these first three are just great stories.
Yeah. Just since we were kind of on the 3PO point, I want to make one comment. As they're getting into the escape pod, 3PO says, "Don't call me a mindless philosopher, you overweight glob of grease," which I think is a fucking dunk on
Hillary
R2.
said 3PO had a nice tight ass.
I mean, he kind of does.
Yeah.
Dude, the costume for that is insane. When he's walking in the desert, like, I was noticing that, like, as he walked, obviously, like, his thigh piece would, like, go down. And then I was like, I wonder if you could, like, see underneath. And it's like, no, because he's also wearing, like long shorts, kind
that
but
are
like
like
metal.
wires or whatever. Right?
Yeah, and it's like it's an incredible costume.
And it's, we talked about this a bit in the Fast and Furious, but it's like the fact that all of the stuff is real.
Yeah.
And
Which
like
is
we also
why
talked,
like all the CG shit pisses me off.
Yeah.
Because everything that is not that looks so good.
And-
like the miniatures, all the ships are miniatures.
yeah.
And like all the explosions. I mean, I'm pretty sure the explosion of like the Death Star was changed to look a bit more dramatic.
I think it was, yeah.
But like so many of these like explosions and like
The
all of the ships,
lightsabers
the lights,
and- yeah.
everything's done for real and it looks so good.
Or just with like basic effects that they had at the time.
yeah.
Whereas like you get that other shit in there and you're like, fuck, it's just so ugly. It's so much worse. It's so bad.
To be honest, a part of me wishes that before we started this, that I hooked you up with the despecialized editions and we did those. Because that's like the pure
version of it.
the pure version.
That's that pure Mexican bam bam.
Sure, pal.
We'll talk about that in their next episode of Too Fast, Too Furious. Can I give you a bit of my take on Star Wars?
Can I just do a couple like A New Hope specific things? You do that. I have one more thing to say after that, and then we rank.
Well, we got to do questions, and then yes.
Yes. What did you think of Luke showing up and seeing that his
That was
uncle
brutal.
and aunt are charred skeletons?
That was pretty brutal.
Yeah. I always forget how close up and detailed they show it.
Yeah.
I'm always like, I'm pretty sure they just do a far shot, and if you look closely, you see him. And it's like, no, they go do a close up.
Well, even with like what do they call them? Just sand people.
Yeah. Which I realize sand people is probably like what the locals call as like kind of a derogatory term.
Yeah.
But because they're Tusken Raiders.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, sand people is probably like the in-universe way of like
derogatory.
The fucking sand people. And it's like, which I find interesting because that just like expands the world. Anyway.
But like when they're dead on the ground, you just see their little dead bodies everywhere, and you're like, oh fuck, that's like.
Oh, you mean the Jawas?
Sure. I'm sorry. I don't know that.
No, it's okay. You mean when they're like tossing them on and burning their bodies?
Who is burning their bodies?
Like 3PO and Ben and R2 when
they're burning the Jawas' bodies?
Yeah. When Luke goes and sees Owen and Beru's charred corpses and then goes back. And he's like, I want to go with you to Alderaan or whatever. Like when he arrives there, 3PO's literally throwing a Jawa body onto a pile and they're burning them.
I feel like
I thought that's what you were referencing. Sorry.
Anyway, the thing where like I think it is the Jawas though, where they're just like laying dead around and they're just like on the stairs just fucking killed because the stormtrooper shot at them so much.
Yeah.
It's just like a little brutal.
Yeah.
But I don't know. You need a little brutality in these kids' movies.
Well, it's kind of it's like how when like Obi-Wan cuts off Ponda Baba's arm in the cantina, like there's like blood coming out of it, which we don't really see much blood in Star Wars after this movie, but like there's just a lot more brutality in this movie, and like
it makes it feel a little more real.
Yeah, which I appreciate. I mean, there's stuff like that in like the next two as well, but it's a lot more like conceptual brutality than it is like visual. My next note was, man, George Lucas really fucked up the Mos Eisley intro.
Yeah, man, it's insane.
Oh yeah, and then I wrote the fact that Marcia Lucas saved this film in the edit and like saved it for George Lucas and like made it what it is, and then George Lucas was like, I'm actually gonna go back and fuck around with it. It's just like, dude, like
well, because he's also like changed some of the takes that they use too, right? Like throughout time he's been like, actually there's a better take.
I think like a time or two, but like for the most part it's the same. It's mostly just adding shit and removing it's like and change. Oh dude, Han, when Han, Luke and Chewie like put on stormtrooper outfits and they're going to get Leia and they walk in and they're like trying to play off that like we have this Wookiee for whatever, and they're like, he got loose, and then shoot all the Imperial people like trying to play it off.
I think that's like maybe the best Han stuff is in when they're trying to break Leia out. And he's like talking to the guy on the thing and he's like, no, please don't come down here.
Yeah, he's
please.
like, everything's all good here. We're fine here now. How are you? And it's like, what's your like registration number? And he's like, and just shoots it. And he's like, boring conversation anyway. It's like, it's so... Yeah, I do agree actually that is the best Han stuff in this movie. It's the best Han stuff because like even then when they save Leia and they're like chirping back and forth, it's so good. Like, you had a plan for getting me? Did you have a plan for getting out? And he's like, he's the brains, sweetheart. And it's just like it's so good. It's so weird how George Lucas is so bad at dialogue, but so much of this dialogue is so good.
I think
simply because it's sold well.
Part of it could also just be like the actors.
Yeah.
Were like, I'm just going to say this.
Well, that's something that Mark Hamill said, that he's been like, the dialogue was so strange and odd, and it was so in universe, so I didn't even really know what I was saying. But he was like, I figured if I just delivered it earnestly and honestly, that it would probably come across well. And I think that that's kind of just what they all did, is they were like, And Alec Guinness also said that, and he was really good at it as well. Just being like, I'm going to talk about this like it is not crazy, even though like I'm reading it and it's the most wacky thing I've ever seen. I'm going to read it like it's completely normal.
And then the thing where Luke goes into Leia's cell and she's like, "Hey, you're a little short for a stormtrooper, right?" And he's like,
Oh, the uniform.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good. The last thing that I'll say is that like when Luke blows up the Death Star and then comes back and he gets out of his X-wing and like Leia comes up and like Han come up and they're just like so ecstatic and like so excited and they're like slapping each other in the face being like, I knew you'd come back, I knew you. And it's like, what, you think I could miss out on being the hero, let you get all the credit or whatever? And it's like, and then Carrie Fisher's line delivery of being like, I always knew there was more to you than money, which I think is just like a funny line delivery. But like just seeing them so excited, it's like, man, I really believe that they care for each other. Anyway, that's my last thing I was going to say. Your turn.
I feel like a little bit Star Wars is a little bit like a religion in a way because like
the franchise?
Yeah, because people who get into it young, I feel like it's easier to get into it when you're young and like care about it later on in life. Whereas like I didn't watch it very much when I was young and like trying to become a Star Wars fan later on, I feel like there's something about being young and watching Star Wars that is so like magnificent. Whereas like when you're older and you're watching it, you're like, it's kind of a silly little show. Right? But like when you're young, you're like, this is the coolest thing ever. They're in space. They have laser swords. I'm going to play around like this and pretend I'm a Jedi for 8 hours today.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the rest of my life.
I was thinking about it, but I was like, well, you kind of do that. But
yeah.
There is a part of me where I'm like, I just wish I watched it when I was younger because I feel like I would have such a deeper connection to this movie. Whereas now I'm watching it, I'm like, it's A New Hope. Yeah. It's just like a great movie. There are great characters.
Yeah.
But it does have that thing where I'm just like, I don't have a emotional connection to it, I guess. Whereas like, I really like the movie. I think it's great. And Star Wars as a whole, I just don't have an emotional connection to it because like when I was 17, I was kind of like, okay, we'll watch all these things with like a clear mind.
Yeah.
You know?
I completely get what you're saying. Because I almost feel like a part of me wishes, because like I wish that I was like a little bit older when the prequels were coming out so that I could have like watched those as they were coming out. Because I grew up with the prequels, but I grew up with them watching them on VHS at home, which is like fine. Like however you watch, whatever. But like, I do feel like a part of me is like growing up with them. I've like just, I've never known not loving Star Wars. It's always been a part of my life. And there's a part of me that's like, I kind of wish I discovered it. Like, I kind of wish I had the opportunity to discover it and be like, wow. Instead of like, because that's something that I kind of wanted to make a point to do, which I'll get to in a minute, is like, I think I've had a hard time like looking deeper into what Star Wars is and like really appreciating it for what it is rather than like what I've just always known
just
it
like
to
the
be.
Nostalgia of it.
Yeah, it's like, because in a way I love Star Wars because I always have, but like a part of me like feels like I'm missing the thing of like loving Star Wars because I discovered it and can really see why I love it, which is kind of what I've been doing like in more recent years, is like really looking at like what makes Star Wars good rather than just being like, I love Yoda. It's like, okay, but why is Yoda so good? Like what makes Yoda so good?
And like the reason I compared it to sort of a religious thing is because like,
I mean, look at Star Wars Celebration. That's a fucking cult.
It's kind of a cult, yeah. There's people who like get into it young and they're just like, I've always known this. I love this. I'm going to love this for the rest of my life, or like follow this for the rest of my life.
I cannot imagine not believing this and loving
but
this.
The like thought of like a 20-year-old just suddenly becoming a huge Star Wars fan feels like there needs to be some major thing that happens to them for that to happen, because it is such like it's such like a deep thing to get into where there's so much Star Wars. There's an incredible amount of Star Wars.
And that's kind of what bums me out about like why a lot of the recent stuff hasn't really been like hitting. Like some of it's good, but like I just like because a new Star Wars fan kind of just needs the thing that gets them.
Yeah.
And like I just feel like there hasn't really been any of that. I think the closest thing is the Andor show, because like that's something where like I've seen things online of people who have been like, I haven't really been interested in Star Wars since I was like a little kid or at all, but like this show's good. And it's like, okay. And it's like I'm at the point now where I'm like, even if you don't watch the other shit, I'm just glad you like that one.
Yeah.
Like just because so much of Star Wars is like disappointing, especially
like,
now.
Having Obi-Wan, having Ahsoka, having like the kind of the last 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, more of the last one. Not that these things are horrifically bad, but they are not this movie. Yeah. Right? They don't have the sort of like, I don't even know, like majestic quality that this movie, mystical quality that this movie does. Yeah. And it's harder to sell someone on, go back and watch the thing from 1977 than it is to sell someone on, there's this good Star Wars show. And then you go back and check the other ones out, right? Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like, whenever I talk to people who haven't seen Star Wars and they're like, I just don't know where to start. I'm always like, start at the first ones. Yeah. And it's like, the old ones? And I'm like, yes. Yeah. Please start at those ones.
It's like they need a little hit of something, like a good one now, to be like, okay, let's go see what's going on here.
And I think that's the problem, is that there hasn't been a lot of good one now.
Yeah, especially in the last like 5 years. I think The Last Jedi.
We'll say opinions on The Last Jedi. Yeah. I don't think like the quality of The Last Jedi really
is getting
reflects
people
this next point. Yeah. But like The Last Jedi kind of started the like downward trend. Yeah. Because like a lot of people hated it. That kind of started this negative feeling towards Star Wars, and then just like nothing afterwards really hit. I mean, Mandalorian was post Last Jedi.
And I think the first season got some people into it because it was such a big moment.
Aside from like people watching The Force Awakens because it was a big event, like the first season of Mandalorian is the first time since Disney acquired Star Wars that like all of a sudden there's like a new wave of fans. But like that's the thing. People love I'm going to rant, but I'm going to try not to. I'll make it quick. The Mandalorian's first season did well because it was new. It was like a new character in new settings, facing new odds with a new problem. And like that's why people loved it. And then they went, oh, wow, people love The Mandalorian. And then they just did more of the same, and then also introduced them to more of the old same stuff, and then just like made it all the same. And it's like, no, the whole point is that we like new stuff, which is like, people have been saying it for years. And the fact that I think they still might not get that is like so infuriating and confusing.
It made me so disappointing that there was like, okay, there's this pitch for this Rey movie that could be kind of interesting. And then it turns out that it's just a Mandalorian movie that they're going to do.
Well, no, that's 2 different movies.
No, I know, but it's like the Rey one is kind of fallen away, and they're like, Mandalorian and Grogu is the next movie. Yeah. It's like, well, what about the one where it's like you can meet a bunch of cool new Jedis and go to a bunch of different planets and like do something cool and interesting? Yeah. Instead, it's just like, let's go back to fucking Tatooine or wherever. Yeah. And watch Grogu do the Force. Shit. Anyway, we'll talk about that later on.
Well, so that's like what makes A New Hope so good. And like this trilogy so good is because it was a new thing. It's not based on anything. It's not driving it or like pulling from anything. It is just like fully new ideas, and it's committing to those ideas. And like, obviously that's going to draw people in. So like, yeah, it's difficult to jump in. I mean, it's like if someone wanted to be a Marvel fan now, like what do you do?
I guess you just say the first Iron Man and stop whenever you don't want to watch the next one.
Yeah.
But like,
I guess that's actually even easier.
I think Marvel is pretty easy because I think the answer is Iron Man to Endgame. Maybe
and then
just
if you want to do more, you can.
Yeah. But like, you can probably just hit the Avengers movies and like Captain America and Iron Man. The Iron Man movies aren't really that, I don't know. It's just like, maybe just watch. I don't even know where you, honestly, it's not as easy as you think because there are 23 movies from
true.
Iron Man to Endgame or whatever.
That's
so
true.
it's just like,
But I mean, like we know someone who not recently, but like within it was kind of a late comer to
Who's
like
this?
Georgia.
oh really?
Yeah, she came late to the MCU train.
Oh,
where
okay.
like she was like, I've seen like some of them, but like I haven't really like been
And then
paying
she started
attention.
watching them?
Started at Iron Man and just watched every single one up until Endgame and like loved it, was amazed by it, and then like she was like, I'm so excited to be up to date now as they're doing new stuff, and then it's just been downhill since then. I think the issue with coming in as a new fan to Star Wars, because then she also tried to do the same with Star Wars, and she was like, to be honest, I just couldn't get it. I just couldn't get into it. And I'm like, I kind of understand, because like the first ones you should watch are 4, 5, and 6. And like then there's 1, 2, and 3. Then there's a bunch of animated shows. Then there's a bunch of live action shows. Then there's the sequel trilogy. Then there's also a bunch of graphic novels. Like the problem with Star Wars being all part of one canon is that, and like the sequels really highlight this, is that they're able to, they shouldn't be able to, but they're able to kind of just be like, if you don't get this, there'll be a book about it. And it's like that really brings it down, because then the barrier of entry feels so large.
It's kind of like the thing that was so great about A New Hope just being dropped into the world is also the thing that makes Star Wars so hard. Mm-hmm. Because you are just dropped in a world and there's a million things going on.
Well, that's the thing. Watching Star Wars A New Hope and it being called Star Wars and it being the only thing you've seen of this, when you're dropped in, you're like, I guess we're just doing this. And it's like it works and it feels like it just gets you going. But when you start at Star Wars A New Hope and then you're like, this feels like I'm just being dropped in the middle of something, and this movie is called Episode 4, then you're like, you kind of get in your head and you're like, so I feel like I started at the wrong spot, or like I feel like I'm missing something. It's like, but you're not though. And it's like,
Yeah.
They
It's kind of cool and kind of bad at the same time.
yeah.
Can I ask questions?
Yes, and then I have one thing before
We'll
we
do your
rank.
one thing before the questions.
Well, no, we can do questions. Fine.
Questions lead into rank. You don't know how the show ends.
I just did like a very brief like analysis.
I'm gonna
of
need
the
to
film.
start editing this tomorrow. This is gonna be a long one.
Sorry, man.
No, it's okay.
Well, this one's not for 2 weeks.
I know, but that's why I need to start tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
This movie is all about. This is just like a brief analysis.
Yeah.
But this movie is all about, as silly as it sounds, hope. Luke Skywalker spends the entire film learning that life brings loss. However, that does not mean that all is lost. It is how you choose to proceed that defines who you are. Luke, Han, and Leia must put aside whatever has happened in their pasts and focus on one singular goal. Otherwise, it will all be for naught. I just wanted to...
That's your little take on A New Hope.
Yeah.
That's good.
I did those at that for like each of the movies.
That's good.
I just feel like a little...
Just a
this
little
is what I
capper.
gleaned from it, besides like, whoa, it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, question time.
How do the stormtroopers have such fucking horrific aim?
Which
Like-
is interesting because like Obi-Wan has a line where he's like, these couldn't have been Tusken Raiders. The shots are far too precise.
Yeah, and I was
it's like,
really?
I'm not sure they hit a fucking thing aside from a couple rebels in the very beginning sequence.
Yeah, it's like horrific. It actually was a little annoying when Luke is just on that little platform, trapped on the platform with Leia.
Yeah.
And the
that's
guy
specific
standing
one I'm
right
thinking.
there.
Well, because they have a door frame.
Yeah.
Luke and Leia are filling the entire door frame basically, and they're like, shooting around it, and it's like,
And it's like that actually kind of annoyed me a bit about the movie, where I was like, they need to hit something. They need to shoot someone.
Here's are you aware that like this is like a big thing
No,
in Star Wars?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure, because like I'm pretty sure people were annoyed with it in 1977. It's
so cheesy that they just like miss all the time.
Yeah.
You know? Anyway. What's your favorite piece of Star Wars merch?
Merch
Yeah. Because you kind
that
of...
I own? I'm assuming. I feel like...
Yeah, I was thinking that you own, but if there is like a Jabba mask that you really want...
Man, I need that Jabba mask.
Interesting. That's a good voice. I'm so excited for... what's the little flying? Watto.
Oh, yeah,
Fuck
man.
yeah, baby.
Favorite piece of Star Wars merch?
And I count your action figures.
I mean, I've got like quite a few like sideshow collectibles, like Hot Toys. I love those.
I was gonna tell you to bring one, or like bring some or something,
could've.
or
I'd have
bring
to
a
put 'em in
Star Wars
box or
thing
something, but
to put on the table, and then
I could have brought my lightsaber or something.
We'll do that next time.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess like obviously my lightsaber is really cool, but like it kind of just hangs up. The action figures I love being able to look at them. I love being able to pose them. I mean, I'm really like in all media, I'm a characters guy. Like even in video games, like I spend so much time in a character creator. Like playing Red Dead Redemption 2, I spend so much time buying clothes and shit.
You love a character customization screen.
Yes, absolutely I do. So like characters really are like my focus. So like being able to have my favorite characters displayed in like high detail is like really awesome. But I think what I might say is Olivia got me a gift like a few years ago, and it's a piece of film from the Return of the Jedi. And it's like in this little, they did like a series of them, but it's like a frame of film from when R2 and 3PO are like trying to get into Jabba's palace. And I just think that's really cool.
It's cool. That's so cool.
So I didn't pick one there, but like those are generally my favorite.
I think the film one is really cool.
Yeah.
I don't have a piece of Star Wars merch that I like.
That's fine.
I had one of the lightsabers when I was a kid, and that was fun. If you murder or kill a droid, is it murder if you kill a droid? Because they are conscious.
Here's the thing. I think because like in the prequels, there's battle droids. I mean, I guess you're killing a battle droid.
Yeah.
Really. But like
they have one task. I feel like with 3PO and R2 and droids of that ilk.
It depends if they have advanced programming.
Yeah.
You know? Like I feel like killing 3PO, you're killing someone.
Yeah.
Which like droid racism is really a thing in Star Wars. I mean, the droids aren't allowed in the
bar.
cantina.
Yeah.
Like Obi-Wan like is like both in this movie and like in prequel movies is like kind of just like does not give a shit about droids. Like
that's so sick.
So like I think that like if they are an advanced programming droid where they like are given a personality, I think that's probably
that's the line.
The line.
And then are they slaves?
Well, that's the other question.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you're bringing this up. Because
he actually wrote his dissertation on this.
Well, because there's the restraining bolts.
Yeah.
Which that I think is like the problem. Because when they're on the Tantive 4 blockade runner at the beginning,
of course,
3PO and R2 don't have restraining bolts on. So I think at that point they're free citizens.
Okay.
Yes, they like serve like Captain Antilles,
but
or
other
whatever.
people serve Captain Antilles.
Exactly. It's like that's more they have a job.
Yeah.
Whereas like when they are then taken by the Jawas, put restraining bolts on them and sold to like they're literally sold. That's to me that's a level of slavery. Which like and then the same thing happens in Jabba's palace and Return of the Jedi. They get little restraining bolts on them. It's like I think the restraining bolt is like
the line kind of.
as well.
Okay. Good to know. I've got a whole line of droids I'm trying to work on, so I just kind of want to be safe about it.
And ethical.
Can I do my Darth Vader for you?
Yes.
What should I say?
What's
like a Darth Vader line?
I find your lack of faith disturbing, maybe.
Hold on. I find your lack of... Nope, hold on.
I find your lack of faith.
Hold on.
It's taking so long.
I was born in the dark.
There you go.
What makes a Star Wars movie for you? Like, what are the, like I kind of said with the Fast and Furious pillars that I laid out, do you have a sort of like thing that is Star Wars to you?
I probably, if I knew this was coming, I probably should have written this down.
Okay.
Which, like, I probably should have. But let me see if I can come up with something on the fly.
Okay. And if you think of something
Later, I can mention
later,
them in
mention it
future
in
episodes.
Empire. Okay.
I think that, like... I think that some of the cores just like that immediately come to mind is like you need to have like the characters are what's important. Like you really need to have like well-defined characters who have goals and flaws. Like the flaws of the characters are really, really important. Like Han Solo's got so many flaws. Luke's got so many flaws. And like to see them overcome those flaws is like very important. And I think that like their relationships with each other is important. Like as throughout the trilogy, like each of the main characters is in need of saving, usually at the beginning of the film. And like the other characters are willing to do anything necessary to save them. And it's like, I feel like that is kind of at its core what needs to be in a Star Wars movie. The prequels, I think, have that to an extent, but they kind of lose it a little bit. So I don't think that like that makes them bad necessarily. But like just thinking of the original trilogy, what makes it strong is that. And then I think also like I feel like it's tough to say whether the Force needs to be there. Because I think that, like, a big misconception in Star Wars right now is that there need to be lightsabers, there need to be Jedi, there needs to be the Force.
Yeah.
But, like, I think really it just needs to... A strong Star Wars story just needs to be dedicated to its premise and, like, dedicated to its, like, lore. Like...
Which is one of the things I like about Solo in a way.
Yeah.
Where it's like... In a way, that movie is just like dedicated to what it is trying to show you and not really interested in a lot else.
Yeah.
There are some things where it's like, okay, does the Kessel Run? Like, there is shit like that in there, but it's like really kind of self-contained. And same with Rogue One, where it's like that Rogue One
it knows
is
exactly
this.
what it is doing.
Yeah.
And it's
maybe Rogue One's a better example.
Yeah.
But like, this is what Rogue One is. We're not going to do all that other shit that we feel we need to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think strong characters with very clear motivations, very clear flaws, seeing how those intersect and how those conflict but also like intertwine with other characters. I think that's really the core of Star Wars. Which just sounds like I'm saying that's what a good story is.
Yeah. But like that has kind of been missing from some Star Warses.
Yeah.
Which is sad because it's such a great franchise with so many misfires in it at the same time where you're just like, don't fuck it up.
Yeah.
Like, how are you constantly fucking this up?
Well, I think another big thing, which I definitely say is like also a pillar of Star Wars, is mysticism or like it needs to be, or is that the correct word?
I'm not sure what you're saying.
Mythical? What's the word?
What are you trying to say? It needs to have... Whimsical is more like lighthearted and funny. Mysticism is more like mysterious, like kind of magical.
There's a word we said earlier.
Whimsical? No. I don't know.
Anyway.
What are you trying to say?
There needs to be, I guess it is mysticism, but like there needs to be some sort of like mystery that is like otherworldly.
Yeah, I think mysticism works.
But like, because I think that's kind of a problem. They've kind of painted themselves into a corner that like so much is known about Star Wars now that like it's hard to tell a story where like you don't really know what's happening. And even if you do, like you're kind of conditioned to be like, I wonder what this is connected to. And it's like, what we really need is like a story where, and that's kind of what made Mandalorian good, is that you were learning about like Mandalorian culture, which we've
Mandalorian lore.
Mandalorian.
There it is.
But like you're learning about Mandalorian culture, which we've never really seen before. That is what made it interesting, because you're learning something. I don't know. Maybe I'll come with better pillars in the coming episodes, but I think those are really at its core what it is.
Like mysticism, good characters, good character dynamics,
yes.
Basically. Yeah.
And
I think along with the mysticism is like a wonder about the world.
Yes.
Where it's like when it gets so nitty-gritty as to do the midichlorian kind of thing, that's the thing that you kind of don't want in Star Wars, because it notches down like the wonder of like, how does one become a Jedi instead?
Well, it's like there was a rumor that they were going to make a movie that was going to be about the creation of the first lightsaber. And everyone's like, that sounds cool on paper, but like, I don't want to know that. Yeah. Like, the more you explore like the unknowns of Star Wars, the less special it becomes. Which like, so the real answer is you need to create new mysteries and new questions. Anyway. Okay,
now rank.
This is a tough one, I think, probably.
It kind of is, because I like what you explained last time when you were ranking Fast and Furious. I was kind of like, I wrote down a little blurb of like kind of where I would put Star Wars if I was ranking it like that, right? Where it's like, if I'm literally just looking at this list and I was like, where would I personally put this? I actually wrote down 31.
Wowzers.
Where I was just like, I don't feel like I want to watch this like all the time, because I just don't have that kind of nostalgia that I was talking about, where it's like, I have always loved this thing and I currently do love this thing and I think about it and like, it is this important to me. So I was just like, of course it's good. Yeah. I'm not saying it's bad. But if I was just like on a watch list of like in order of which movies I'd want to watch on this list, it's probably around that area.
Oh, yeah.
I think the movie is much better than that.
Yeah.
But like, that's sort of like my subjective ranking. Objectively, is it above the Fast and the Furious? You could say that, yes. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
So then, like, giving that a think, I guess, probably, like, and this is the part where I'm like, it's such a wild swing from what I just said. Yeah. But it's like, probably around Spider-Verse or The Incredibles.
Oh, wow. I wasn't expecting that high. Yeah, that's, you literally like, skipped ahead about 30 spots.
I know, but it's just like, is this movie better than Harry Potter? I think so. It's better than Surf's Up. I think it's better than BlacKkKlansman. It's better than Step Brothers. I think it's better than Elf. The Thing. Like, between all of these, if I was like one-on-one matchup, which one would I take? Yeah. It's probably Star Wars until I get to like The Incredibles. And then I'm like, I kind of like The Incredibles because it has that same sort of thing of like, the world is so well wrought and like well filled out that I think it's just like a masterpiece of world building, and the characters I think are a little bit like, I like the characters a little bit better. Sure. I like the idea of the world a little bit better because I'm just a little more prone to superheroes, I think.
Yeah.
And like, that's kind of my line where I was like, okay.
So here's my thought, because I am considering like how great it was at the time. I'm considering like how great it is on its own, and like how great it is like not considering like all the context I know. But I am not really gonna grade it based on like cultural impact, because if we're doing that, then it's like number one. Probably.
Yeah.
That's silly.
This is the biggest franchise of all time. I don't really care what people say about like Marvel and stuff.
Yeah.
Everyone knows what Star Wars is and has
Yeah.
probably seen something a Star Wars.
Yeah.
And it has made so much more, like Marvel probably gross all time has made more money because there's 130 of
But
them.
like as a brand, Star
Yeah.
Wars has made more than like MCU, I should
Yeah,
say.
and people
Maybe Marvel. But
who has fucking Marvel merch? Like
a lot
honestly,
of people,
I know
surprising.
they do, but like honestly and truthfully, no.
Yeah.
Like it's not as big of an impact. It's just fucking nerds.
Sure. Okay, so my turn. So your range is between five. No, not five.
About 6 and 31.
6 and 31.
Yeah, I think I wanted to keep it tight for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, just to give you a real nice area
So
to blast in.
here's the truth. Obviously, I think this movie is absolutely incredible. I think that it's like it kind of like there. I think this set a bit of a blueprint for so many movies that came after it.
There's so much that have just ripped off Star Wars.
Yeah. That being said, I do think, without giving too much away of future episodes, I do think that it is the weakest of the original trilogy.
I wouldn't agree with that.
Well, that's fine.
I know. I'm just telling you.
Yeah. Just because I think that like pacing wise, I think that it is much slower.
Yeah.
Simply because I don't think George Lucas really knew what he was making, and it was kind of saved by Marsha Lucas. So like, there's only so much. But then like next movie and the movie after, they get like really great directors who really know what they're doing with the content. So like incredible movie, definitely, at least for me, the lowest of the three. So I would probably like so objectively, I think I agree with you that I'd probably put it at like 6. Subjectively, I'd probably put it a little bit lower, honestly. I'd probably put it at like 13, above The Thing, below.
Interesting.
Yeah, I guess so.
Above The Thing, below Harry Potter?
Yeah, just because I think like Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone for me, like, encapsulates what I love about Harry Potter more than A New Hope encapsulates what I love about Star Wars, I guess. And the movies above that, just like, it feels so strange to do that though. Like,
He's having a crisis.
it's a little bit strange for me to put like this below like Step Brothers or like Seven, because I'm like, I'd rather watch A New Hope before almost any of the movies above it. But
What does your heart tell you?
I guess then just like a little bit higher. I'd probably put it above. Oh man, I'd probably put it at 6. Above Seven and above Alien, actually, probably. Now that I think.
Well, let's put it there then, baby.
Actually?
Yeah. I'm fine with that.
Even though, like, subjectively, you'd put it at 31.
It doesn't make sense, but yes.
Okay.
Like, in my head, I'm like, that's fucking stupid that you're saying that. But it's just like, yeah, this movie is probably better than all of those movies.
Is there any in this range that you'd, like, specifically really feel like you'd rather have above this movie? Like Seven, Alien, Big Lebowski, Step Brothers.
Not really.
Okay.
Like, some of them I enjoy watching a little more because, like, Step Brothers is probably one of my favorite comedies. Big Lebowski's, I don't even know. Like, I wouldn't watch Big Lebowski before I watch this movie.
Yeah, me neither, I don't think.
Like, I would watch Step Brothers, but that's probably because I get high.
Sure.
Right? And you're just like, I'd rather watch
I will
Step
say
Brothers.
this. I've never
watched a Star Wars
I've
high?
never watched a Star Wars movie high except Phantom Menace.
How was that?
I mean, I love Phantom Menace.
Okay.
We'll get to that.
Oof.
Hey.
I didn't say anything, scumbag.
Wow, I was not anticipating that. Here's can I tell you my genuine fear?
Yeah.
That it's going to seem like I'm trying to put all of the Star Wars movies at the top of the list simply because
you will
starting
not
with the
be able
best
to get
ones.
all of them. Oh, yeah. Okay. I think
I feel like that's understood.
Here's how I feel about it, though, is that the first ones are the best ones.
Yeah.
And then, not that it goes in the toilet, but it's like...
It does go down.
It's hard. Fast and Furious, the first ones are finding themselves and like interesting rides, and then it gets good. Star Wars is like, this is good. And then they're like trying to search for something.
Yeah.
So like, I think it's fair if you're like, yeah.
Okay.
A New Hope and Empire are like two of the greatest
And
movies
Return of the
all time.
Jedi.
Well, we can talk about that.
And we will.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Last thing, Hillary said, why didn't Chewie get a medal?
So that is a big thing.
I know. And it flashed me back to this whole fucking Rise of Skywalker thing where they give his ass a medal, and I wanted to kill myself.
So the thing that bugs me
IRL
isn't
in
that
the
they gave
theater.
him the medal in like Return of the Jedi, or sorry, in Rise of Skywalker. It's that because I also don't want to justify explaining things away in like alternative media, but like it more bugs me that like in the comics he did get a medal. Because, like, they did a story where he actually did get a medal. It was just, like, whatever. But, like, I don't really care about that. What bugs me is that they did that and then went, that doesn't really matter because we want him to have this weird moment in Rise of Skywalker, which is, like, fucking 35 years later. Like,
yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
And also, she said that, and I looked at her, and I was like, I get it, but, like, that is such a big thing for no reason.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, yeah, obviously, why didn't Chewie get a medal? Why didn't Wedge not get a medal and not even appear on the stage?
Yeah.
Like, all the other Rebel pilots died except Luke, and then Han and Chewie were there, and then Wedge was there and lived. Like, he was still a part of the, like, trench run. Yeah, he didn't, like, put the bomb in the hole.
Did C-3PO get a medal?
No. R2 didn't even get a medal.
Yeah.
I mean, how's he going to wear metal? But, like, fucking put a little pin on him or something.
He's got, like, 100 gadgets in there.
You could literally throw a gold magnet on him. I'm sure he'd feel so good. But, like, Wedge should have been up. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's just...
It's such
That's
a
just
stupid
an oversight
thing.
that doesn't really matter.
But also, like, it is a
give him
bit
the
of, like,
medal.
we'll get into that Star Wars culture later. Because
Yeah.
that doesn't exist when this movie comes out.
Yeah.
That exists in the sequels. So,
Well, yeah.
for the most part...
The why didn't Chewie get a medal thing lasted for, like, 30 years.
I know, but also it's like, it's not like... The Star Wars culture sucks in the last...
Oh,
like,
yeah. Oh, I see what you
from sequels on.
Yeah, for sure.
You know? Anyway.
All right, so that's Star Wars Episode 4
Just
and
a
New
quick
Hope.
one for you guys.
Yeah, sorry. Well, hopefully the other ones won't be this long, but...
I don't think they will.
Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, sitting at 6th on our list, under The Incredibles, above 7.
And number 1 on our Fast and Furious Star Wars rankings.
Thus far, yeah.
Yeah. And number 2, The Fast and the Furious. Great spot for that to be in.
What, number 2?
Yeah.
Sure.
It's the second best.
Yeah. And, yeah.
What are you saying?
Nothing. I don't know.
Um,
Let me outro it. It's my epi. Fucker.
Get to it then.
Thanks, everybody, for watching this episode and listening to this episode, whether you watched us on YouTube or listened to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate all the support, and we'll see you guys next episode for Too Fast, Too Furious to continue our Fast and Furious versus Star Wars.
I'm too furious.
I'm really excited, genuinely, to talk about Too Fast, Too Furious, Empire Strikes Back,
Luda.
Tokyo Drift, and Return of the Jedi. I'm really excited. And I know this is later. I have no idea how the prequel films are going to go on this podcast.
I mean, I do worry a little bit about showing you the second trilogy of Fast and Furious.
I think
But we'll get there when we get there.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.